Right there on the cameras and they had it picked up before I got over. Oh, good. Who was some yoga? No, but it, they're like, yeah. But
remember caps, so like, I think that's.
You gotta go down there. Yeah. I was gonna start there. Yeah, no.
Yeah. I sent you the sheet, don't worry.
All right.
I'm sorry.
And so. I know. That's not plans where I live so far. I brought that over. Yes, yeah, it's not like.
Oh, it's transferred.
You're right. Yeah. So. I am, I'm Steve. Yeah. You know, there you go. All right. Today.
All right.
Thank you, Bob.
Come back 5 minutes later. One more is this. The other one. And nobody knows. Program.
But I have to basically do the big thing on the business. Good question. Yeah.
I think.
I would say so.
So, you know, I mean, I used to be in Phillips, I put it together. She's awesome. That's why I love her. Yeah, oh yeah, mine was here. She did. Here. Yes. So, hey, you guys. I had a long time. We ready?
Yeah.
Talk back to you too.
Whatever you are, sir. Let's get it. All right, everybody, we're gonna go ahead and get the meeting called to order. Thank you all for coming in for our Region 16 September meeting. Let's go around the room, do introductions, and we'll make sure we have a quorum. I think we do, but we'll just make sure. And we'll start with James. You want to start?
Thanks, James Corbett. I'm the facilitator. Jake Marcus, approximate Ford, Elder County Under Sheriff, Sam Bishop, and voting.
We need to put a rule in that if you're gonna wear a hat, it has to be a cowboy hat. Yeah, I don't recognize you in a ball cap. No, not Dallas. But
Rule.
Tim Johnson, Prosper, Chief, bringing minor first.
Lynette Ferguson, President City Council, voting member.
David Lineover,
just in the nick of time.
You're up to me. What do I do?
Yeah.
Richmond City Council, voting member.
Stein Brodsky, yard position, non-voting member.
Jamie McConnell on proxy, goes our chief Mandy Royal, voting member.
Lauren Olson, County Commissioner, voting member. Carrie Geithner, County Commissioner, voting member.
Eric Stone, Teller County Commissioner, Vice Chair of the Commission and voting member. Michael Allen, DA, and Chair and voting member, which I think we, Mr. Clapke.
8 is a quorum, and I heard board name for voting member.
Perfect, thank you, sir.
Lynn Kane, Teller County Department of Human Services. Non-voting member.
Steve Johnson, Colorado Springs Fire Department.
Nick Rossi, project manager, El Paso County, non-voting member.
Amanda Graham, Deputy Chief Financial Officer for El Paso County and Disability Deferred Council.
Stephen Claffey, I'm the chief deputy county attorney sitting in for Kenny Hodges.
How are you?
Mr. Rivera.
Back of the year, effective parent, non-voting member.
Mine Morales, still have County Sheriff's Office.
Allison Dodge, One Chance to Grow Up.
All that's done for CC. Big boss, me, thanks, local recovery.
Beth Barnhart, Public Health Analyst, TBC Foundation.
Angela Rose, Council.
I did well, volunteer manager for Phoenix.
Stephanie Beecham, Senior Manager.
A little louder, please, so I just don't know.
Stephanie Beecham, with their peers.
Thank you. Dr. Catherine Delana here, to you, Pat.
That's Land Road, Porchlight Health. Sophia Baker, Enemy Recovery Resident. Jamie McMillan Garcia, Step Spring. Megan Shea, Step Spring. Joe Miley, Acting Deputy Director, El Paso City.
Logan Hyder, Data and Analytics Manager, El Paso County Public Health.
Jason Anthony Gonzalez from the Hearts and Open Doors Sober House in Cripple Creek, Colorado.
Stanley Conley, director of Arts and Open Doors.
Thank you. All right, thank you all for being here. It's another busy day here with Region 16 with the roll call, quorum and introductions. Go ahead and turn it over to James. Let's start running our agenda.
Do housekeeping, just things to start. If you have a sign up sheet, if you haven't signed it, we'll be passing it around in the back for you to sign up. Also one for the council, so that one should stay at the top, the council member, that one can stay here.
No one stays here?
Yeah, for the council members.
Council
one
member
in the
needs
back.
it.
I will send back for
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much. So first on the agenda today is the consent paragraph for the August 28 minutes approval.
Motion to approve minutes.
That was quick. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Next up is the financial report from Amanda Grant. You have documents in front of you, a long sheet and a short sheet, both color copy. Those are Amanda's documents.
You guys are really lucky you get 2 spreadsheets from me today. The first is
How did we get so long?
no, that's a special thing. The first is your regular monthly report that you see. The only differences on this from the last meeting are some interest income. And then some expenses moved out of the encumbrance line and into the operating expenditures because we approved some of those grants and accounts payable got those out. Your bigger sheet shows our current two-year plan allocations at the top, so that shows the last time we submitted a two-year plan to the state, how much you guys allocated in each one of your statements of work. What we've awarded out of that and what you have remaining, that's just kind of a guide for you all to look at as you're reviewing the rest of these applications to see what you have in your original bucket left. As a reminder, if you guys decide you want to award more than is available in your current bucket, that would require a amendment to the state. That's absolutely something we can take care of and do, but just know that I would need to amend that with the state prior to issuing any of those grants. And then the rest of it, the two spreadsheets on the left, item 4 and item 5 and 6, those are just the information for the organizations and the amount requested on the agenda items today. And then your future planning on the right shows you all of the applications that our facilitator has received in the July 2025 application cycle. Any questions?
I don't have any questions. I'll just make a comment. I really like this. I think it helps all of us get an understanding of where we are with funding and what groups we've got money left over. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's big, so you can read it.
Helps my old eyes.
That's what I was thinking, what I was gonna say.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Step on the agenda item, as you know, we're here to.
We lose our.
Yeah, so we get right back. Stuff back. All right, I'm gonna get the IT guy to come back up. But the next agenda item is the council discussion and final award of funding. These applicants were interviewed and presented last month. Now we are looking at them one by one to decide which ones to for the final vote and final award of funding. So from Silver Key A to I, we're advancing further discussion, and one by one today we will go through them, review them, and vote on them for final funding or not. So we'll start with Silver Key. And I have a slide to show for them.
Yeah.
I have a clarifying question, and maybe, and we don't have to discuss this right now, but I want to put it at least on the radar. I personally feel like there's been some inconsistencies with the way that we have moved applications forward. We have had some that we thought we would move forward. There have been some confusion, I think. I would love to see at some point, some sort of clarity around that process of if we are, my initial understanding was if it was unanimous, we were gonna move those forward first. If that was agreement, we could see what was kind of left in the bucket. That process we seem to have diverted from that process, and I'm just a little unclear, so I'd love at some point, we don't have to do it today, at some point for us to try and clarify that process, because I know, Lauren coming on new as well, she's asked me, and I said, I feel like it's been inconsistent and I'm struggling. So I figured it would be beneficial to bring that forward.
So let me highlight what the process is. So the process is that we have had people come and interview all 35 applicants. So we didn't rule one out.
Sorry.
So other councils have ruled individuals out in advance. We haven't ruled anyone out. So we all allow everyone to come and present. They each present for 2 minutes. After their presentation, we make a kind of informal advancement or not. So we advance informally the ones that you see listed under council discussion on final award funding. That doesn't mean they're going to be funded today, but they were at least advanced with further discussion, which is what today is. The list below them, the council discussion of non-awarded applicants, those are ones that weren't previously advanced. And since this is our last meeting for this cycle, here's an opportunity to bring those back up to make sure that there wasn't any confusion. If anybody was missed, that they wouldn't do that bond.
I just want to point out that at some point, we had a discussion, unless I'm the only one who remembers this. Or if they were unanimous, we were gonna try and move those first because they were the easiest, then we could see, and so now it seems that that process has been changed. And I personally would love to see us go with, hey, if they're unanimous, let's pull those off the top of those buckets because they're the ones that we can agree on first. And at some point that changed, and I would love to go back to that if the group is in agreement.
Yeah.
Well, if I could go ahead, I agree that it's been confusing. I don't agree necessarily that it was only based on unanimous. So we were doing the initial, thumbs up. If everybody was unanimous on a specific one, we would pull those. And then there were some that were left behind that we would then discuss, and some of those were then passed on by basically the majority for
Sure,
further consideration.
I just mean, I don't disagree with you,
Okay.
that was like, there was kind of like the, here are the unanimous, here are the ones that there's a majority. But on this, there's no indication of which ones
I got
were
it. Okay.
unanimous.
So that's better to clarify.
Yes. Yeah, so that would help me to say like, these are the ones that were unanimous, let's go through those first. And that's the part that I'm missing, so I apologize if I was.
Okay, yeah, that makes more sense.
And I think one factor is we might have all agreed that we want to fund this organization, but we might not agree that we want to fund them the full amount. Because the bucket is a big one, right? And so, I mean, we're gonna have a case in point with next chapter. I think we're all gonna want to fund this organization. But do we want to give them that volume of the bucket?
Well, and I think that comes down to if there's a motion to fund them, and then if subsequent, either the motion has less funding in the motion itself, if that passes, then that would sort of fit with what you were talking about. I don't think we have to fund to the level that the application is asking for.
Right.
We've done that in the past where we've dialed it back. Or I can't remember specifically who, but we've done that.
But that would be my concern, because the bucket, I mean, we're looking at the SOW 4. Right now, we don't have a big enough bucket. Right, and
The
so,
bucket is what the bucket is.
and we could change the bucket. But, yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's gonna be the challenge, and that's why it's hard to vote for a very large amount. Because it's, well, it takes a lot of bucks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I ask one more clarifying question? And this is probably a legal question, Bobby?
Yep.
So as we're talking about buckets and what's left and that we can change the buckets. Are we noticed today to be able to do that?
I think we have to, based on what Amanda said, I think we have to apply to the state to request changing. And I don't think it's noticed on our agenda to change the bucket amounts, but we can certainly change the award amount. Right?
I can't speak to what to notice. I can tell you the state doesn't have to approve our request. That's up to this council to determine. I just have to let them know that that's what's happening and changing with the system. But whether or not.
Yeah, I'm looking at the agenda now and, I don't think there's enough specificity about potentially increasing the bucket. So I would recommend that if that is an item the council wants to consider, that be a subsequent meeting
Okay.
or any notice.
So, and I do have an agenda item about, funding process review, so maybe we can continue this conversation on that, just kind of learnings throughout the 6 months of doing this.
Again, just trying to clarify then, so we have under the scope of work 4, the remaining, which is the 373,865.09. So you're saying then that we could not approve more than that in awards today without at a subsequent meeting allocating more dollars into that scope of work.
If I could offer a suggestion, if there was, someone you would like to fund, maybe in the language of your motion, fund them pending the subsequent approval of a bucket change. That way, if you guys decide to change the bucket next month, then I already have the go-ahead to get those documents started.
Perfect, that's what I was after.
So kind of an official, right, subject to.
Correct.
Great. Okay, so with that, we're gonna start with Silver Key. Once again, Silver Key presented to this council last month. Their funding request is 47,616. In front of you, you have a little summary to remind you, refresh recollection of what they presented on. I also added their slides again from last time presenting us, so I'll take a quick spin doing the benefit. So you remember here's a board training overview. This is what they laid out as their impact. And then this is their budget.
What are you asking?
So right now, the request for them is whether or not you are interested in funding this group.
Well, I think for $50,000 and they serve 601 seniors, yeah, I think it's more than a bang for our buck. I would support the full funding facility.
Other comments?
Make a motion.
Carrie's making a motion.
Okay, please, motion is.
Yeah, I mean, just looking around, I don't see any objections, so I'm gonna go on a limb here and say I move that we approve Silver Keys, request.
Second.
So the motion in a second to approve the request at the funded amount of 47,616.
Second.
Are there any others?
Thought they said, I thought you were looking for us.
I'm sorry. Any other comments on this?
Any discussion?
I just appreciate that they are targeting a different demographic than some of the other groups we've heard.
So with that, we'll open it up for a full vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? So that has passed unanimously. And we did spend a lot of time on each of these last months, so we're surprised we're moving a little quick. So this one is UC Health / next chapter. Funding request is 1.5 million. You have that document in front of you. It's the second page of the document I just handed out in terms of a summary. And there's two packets. The second packet is for the next round, those that weren't funded, just to get a good look at them as well. This is under SOW 4. And here's their impact. I think the next slide is a budget for them as well. Yeah, here's their budget as well.
Just add one piece of information. This applicant in their application, they requested 1.5 annual program operating budget with a requested 3-year annually renewable contract, pending satisfactory completion of the deliverables. So they're asking for 1.5 million per year for 3 years.
Okay, I'll jump in. While recognizing the UC Health is, one of the two major health providers within the region. A request of this size would completely wipe out probably this entire bucket for the entire, term of funding. This is a pretty massive ask. And I'm wondering, and I apologize for not being here in the last meeting, so maybe somebody can help me a little bit as to whether or not anything within this is scalable. Is it tied to data on, to actual numbers of people that are going, potentially entering into their programs, and, what the specific need is, and is this filling the need? But it's a monstrous ask for the total dollars that we're gonna have.
Well, it is, and at the same time, UC Health does not fund it. It's just the providers are through UC Health as in kind. So keeping that in mind. And the presentation was very good, and they do serve more than 1/3 of our community and veterans. What struck me is it is a big number, but they've had 100% success rate. They have not had one suicide in the entire time they've got this program going. It works. And I think that's what we're looking for, is what works. And it can be then implemented into the secular. And so that number, to me, you can't put a number on a life, right? And they are actually doing exactly what we have charged organizations to do, which is actually have a program that works and makes great impact. So I think they should come back every year with the data. I mean, I don't have a problem having a restriction in there to come back every year with more data and renewing the contracts, but the dollar amount is insignificant to me because it actually works, and it's a huge impact in our communities and your communities and the regions around us. And we're just not seeing that. We have not had one come through yet that's had 100% success rate, not one. So I think that we need to look at the highest and best use of our dollars, and not just, well, what's fair and how are we whittling down the bucket. I think we need to be very intentional about what we fund.
I would just point out too, I agree with what Lynette just said. Additionally, their proposal really actually addresses scopes of work 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Yep.
And so I think conceivably, we could actually carve money out of each one of them to address the request. Because of all the things that you just said. It will be valuable to fund this group, I think.
So, this new idea of committing to 3 years is, I mean, do we know how much, or is it reliable information on knowing how much the bucket's gonna fill
Yeah.
up? In the next 3 years, do we know? I mean, we're gonna get $8 million a year.
More than that.
Well, man, Amber, all right, yeah, I don't know why I said Amber.
As they settle.
As they settle, so we don't know exactly how much we're going to get every year. That said, I can pull up the last summary report.
Because there's something to be said about an organization having a reliable stream of income, as being involved with some nonprofits, I would rather receive less if I knew I was always gonna get it. You know what I'm saying? So the 3 year, I'm interested in, but I don't know how fast our bucket is gonna refill.
Sure, so Commissioner, or Councilperson, to your point, there's currently $13.5 million sitting in our cost account that we can pull down with an amended 2-year plan. That's already been designated to our region and available for us to utilize. And then, as these settle out, we're anticipating another 45 to 50 million over the next 18 years. It's just as it settles, right? So we don't have a plan of exactly how much we're going to get every
Okay.
year.
Question answered.
Okay.
Can I just ask a question around the 3 year, because number one, I agree, they need to come back and prove metrics every year, and it would have to be contingent upon what the availability is of the settlements, but I would ask that, can we actually commit this board to 3 years? Isn't there a Tabor implication there?
So Commissioner, I think in our standard contracts that we would let, there would be a subject to appropriation and funding clause. So each fiscal year would be subject to the availability of funding to the council. And if the council did not have the funding to meet that request, then the contract would just terminate.
And what if we had money in that bucket, but chose to award other contracts? Like, how strict is that anyway?
At least in the language that we typically use in El Paso County, that I imagine will be the same here. That same situation would occur where the council chose not to appropriate funding in a future fiscal year for that purpose, then the contract would terminate.
So really, we can't so we really can't really enter into it fully anyway, because any future council could make whatever. So I just say we just tell them it's 1 year. And then they need to come back and prove it again and come into the council again, because that's really the reality of what the contract says anyway. I'd rather just be upfront about that.
Well, that is certainly true. One thing that you said, though, you mentioned Tabor. I'm not sure that Tabor applies to this. Do we know?
Well,
These are not tax dollars. These are.
That's true.
dollars.
Yeah.
That's true, but I don't know the answer to that, because Tabor does require government bodies to not, but maybe that only applies to those.
So there's really, so first and foremost, yes, it's correct. The settlement dollars aren't subject to Tabor, but I think when you have a public body like this, it's always wise to allow for annual appropriations as those come in, as those funding sources come in. So in theory, if there is sufficient funding today to cover a full 3 years, the council could commit those dollars for the full 3 years. If you wanted to, so that is an option. But given the uncertainty of the funding coming in each year, I think that's where the wisdom comes in of, hey, every year we're going to be looking at what our budget is, what our actual monies are that are coming in.
Because of that impact, generally, all of our contracts are structured as a 1-year contract with up to a certain number of renewals permitted. And so if the council chose to structure it that way, we could do a 1-year grant agreement subject to 2 additional renewals based upon certain satisfactory markers of their deliverables and things like that. So
And
then
so
it would mean they would have to apply again each year. If they came back presented, you all were happy with what they've done, they could just renew that agreement for another year.
Well, I'll make a motion for full approval with that in contingency that they come back with those metrics and apply year after year. which they should anyway.
And I would say in subject to appropriation,
Sure.
You would say what?
and subject to adequate
absolutely.
appropriation.
I,
Well, under SOW 4, we don't have $1.5 million, so
but to your
And
point,
contingent
I know, but I'm
upon-
saying, yeah, do we need to make that part of the motion that it's sucked
Yes.
from other buckets? I think-
yes,
It actually says that in their application, that overall budget total may be subdivided into lesser of contract amounts totaling $1,500,000 to align with our ROAC SOWs as necessary. So I don't know what the process is, if it's this applicant gets with Amanda to figure out how to break up that funding into the other buckets, or if we just move all the money into one bucket.
Well, I also wonder if it wouldn't be better to actually ask them what percentage of their work will fit into each one of the buckets, and then we award based on the percentages that their work actually is.
okay, I'm in my motion to that.
I'll second.
And also subject to, a future fund availability in the
Yeah,
bucket.
and that.
Yeah. That's a really complicated motion,
Yeah.
but somebody get that.
Tell me what to be summarized.
I amend my motion to having them determine what amounts from each bucket that they're gonna focus on. And that them coming back in the next 2 years with metrics and subject to availability of funds. If I had a second.
And
I got those
subject
three.
to, well, the availability of funds
Yes,
totally, or the availability and subject to an appropriation next month.
Next year.
In future years.
Well, no, because
The bucket.
for the bucket.
for the bucket.
Oh, the bucket.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, it was all combined into the appropriation.
Clear
Is
as
that
mud.
all clear to you?
I got it, I took one.
So in the motion, you all from that, is there a second to that? motion?
Yes, there
I
was a
second
second.
it.
Sorry, there's a second from,
I
Lauren.
feel like you were both making the same motion. I don't know how you, I'm just.
Oh, motion.
We have a vote and a second, is there any further discussion?
All right, let's take a
Take a
vote.
vote.
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye. Any opposed?
And just one clarification that will come up when we talk about the new applicants. So the new applicant for the next site's July, there were, let's call them reapplicants, 5 reapplicants. What we did was we had a smaller application for them, or basically outcome focused. So that group would come and they have a smaller application, it's outcome focused, showing out, so they get complete. So with that, application, next up is Antelope Recovery. Antelope is asking for 120,000.
Well, that's keep going.
Antelope
You want to drop the line?
Recovery, and their budget is right there.
It'll be,
Or- Hello.
you know.
This, I was remembering it being youth. But on the bottom it says military. Oh, no, right here. Thank you. I just want to make sure I'm remembering the correct applicant.
This was an app, right? This was software?
No.
We got, who's here from Antelope? Right here. So if we have questions, they can ask you.
Okay.
I know.
Oh, I know, I've gotta go back to this. Which I have.
We would like maybe a 1-minute synopsis of Antelope from their representative.
I would.
Okay, can you come, please? Absolutely. So these are the same slides from last month, so we'll take it on top.
My name is Jacob Austin. I'm one of the peer mentors and outreach, the Associate Director of Outreach at Antelope. We are not an app. We are a fully virtual mental health and substance use IOP and OP for 11 to 18-year-olds. We help kids all throughout the state. We have over 300 partners that actively refer or have agreed to refer people to us. And we're all about overcoming the obstacles to care. We accept just about every type of commercial insurance in the state, all the rates of Medicaid, TRICARE West, and then we also accept uninsured youth. Since we are a virtual provider, we recognize that not all youth have access to technology. So through some of our different partners, we can actually provide Wi-Fi and laptops completely for free. We are bilingual, English and Spanish. So yeah, we're all about overcoming the obstacles of language, finance, locations, tech. And we have a big focus on reaching rural youth, hence, yeah. Hence some of our objectives there. We're trying to target the, essentially the rural youth of Teller County, and then we're going to try to work with the youth of the military families in El Paso County. And yeah, if there's any questions,
You mentioned IoT and unpack IoT and.
yeah, so OP, outpatient services, IOP is intensive outpatient services. The program is highly personalized. It really just depends on the acuity and the risk factors of the case. But it can be anywhere from 1 to 20 hours per week, and that's a nice blend of peer mentorship, individual therapy, group sessions, as well as parent coaching and family sessions. And so yeah, 1 to 20 hours just really depends on what the kid needs.
Questions, please, Commissioner Beckman.
And you kind of mentioned it there at the end, but I remember asking this question previously. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you involve the family in that process?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's different case by case. It depends who the guardians are, but we always like to include them in the initial evaluation session. That way we can kind of get a more holistic idea of the situation. And half of that evaluation will be with the family present and then without the guardians present. So we kind of see both sides of the story. And then from there, it really depends on the diagnosis of the client. But sometimes the guardian is actively sitting in on individual sessions. Like I said, there's parent coaching. And then we also have a parent support group for parents that are in the program together. And then we have an online parent course that we recently just developed. It's essentially like an asynchronous online parent coaching course that they can take at their own speed.
So, how much work do you do in prevention versus, post-crisis, you know?
Good question. I don't have an exact figure for you in terms of ratio. I'd say more often than not, though, we're kind of further along the journey. We're a good middleman between prevention and where someone has to be in partial hospitalization or residential. We're kind of a step down from really intense high acuity cases, but kind of a step up from prevention and lower level acuity cases.
Well, that's, you know where I'm going, because there's a big bucket under number 1. And our number 4 bucket is getting used. How do we consider acute prevention?
I think you can make it subject, similar to what Amanda said earlier, is make any motion subject to a change in allocation of funding between buckets.
I mean, I like the idea. Youth are very tech savvy. They like to use their, deal. And this seems to be something that's, it's not structured around an office visit, which is often uncomfortable and so forth. So there's a lot, to me, I felt like this program has a lot less barriers to get youth to kind of try something that's just like right here.
Exactly, yeah.
Right. And so that's kind of the thing that I kind of like. But I do feel like, we should try to see if we can open the bucket on number 1 a little bit, but I don't know. Again, that's,
Yeah, I
I think
can
we're defining that.
provide a little bit more answer to the prevention question. While that's not necessarily our focus, we'll kind of take a kid at any stage in the journey, unless it's super high acuity, like I mentioned. But I'm a peer mentor. I sit in on the intensive outpatient group sessions every week. And while some of these kids have maybe already struggled with recovery or they're actively using substances, if we're able to change some sort of behavior, add some positive reinforcement, you could look at it as we are potentially preventing negative future behaviors. I was talking with a kid last night who got in a lot of legal trouble most of our kids in intensive outpatient are justice involved youth. But since working with us, he's decided to go completely sober. He's starting to have a baby, and in a one-on-one I had with him last night, he said he was going to get his gang tattoos covered up later in the week. And so by working with us, we are preventing him from relapsing on the substances or going back into a gang affiliated lifestyle.
Yeah, rather than trying to force them into the youth prevention bucket, I would just love for us to have a discussion and say, we really feel like youth prevention is important. We've done some really important things there, but something like this is equally as important, and let's just move that money into the bucket and not try and force them into the wrong bucket. We have the ability to do that. So that would be my thought. I do think, and I love our Teller County folks' perspective. I think Full Circle is another great youth program that we've funded. I feel like there are a lot of similarities. However, this one does have a bit more of a rural reach to it. And so I'd love to hear from our Teller folks. There are a lot of really great programs, and it's very difficult, especially with you all in the room looking at us so expectantly. But the reality is we may come to a point where there are similar programs and we have to choose one program over a next. However, I do think that the rural component maybe is a difference in this one as well. So I would look to those to speak to if that is the case, or for someone to say, no, I don't think it's the same at all.
Yeah, if I may, yeah, I think the main difference between what Antelope is proposing and what Full Circle does, Full Circle is in person. They're coming in, they're in meetings, they're together, they're a community, they're about forming communities. This is mostly virtual, fully virtual, thank you. Fully virtual, which, makes that, and honestly, that's how you're gonna reach rural people, whether it's rural Teller County or rural El Paso County. And I agree with your comment, by the way, don't try to squeeze it into a certain bucket just because it says youth. It's really not prevention, but if it's a value, then we just need to adjust our buckets, at the next meeting. And so personally, I would move to approve Antelope Recovery for the requested amount of 122, subject to reallocation of funds amongst our buckets.
I'll second that.
Do you have any idea of the number of, I guess, the demographics where your kids are living? Are they rural kids? Are they city? Or
I would say majority of them are rural. We do work from the western slope to the I-70 corridor, and we do a lot of work up in northern and eastern Colorado. We actually just had a grant to driving around Yuma County. We do an outreach up there as well. And that's kind of like the founder's focus. She comes from a rural community where there wasn't a hospital for 30 miles. And that's the same for a lot of the team members. So that's our focus, and it's definitely the majority of our demographic.
that goes to the point. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Sorry, I have a.
Oh, just for the record, we have Mark Chacon just came in from CSB, voting member.
I have a process question. Maybe I should have asked this when I first got here, but is there a point where applicants come back to us and we'll report on how it went? Because it would be interesting to know how many of your clients are El Paso Teller, like actually part of the Region 16 opioid demographic. And so when you come back, if that's something you do.
Yeah.
I would like to hear that.
We'd be more than happy to keep track and generate that report. We've managed some large grants in the past, and I believe the last one was around 200K from Signal. And not only did we meet all the standards and expectations set in the grant, we actually did it 3 months faster than what we said we would. But we're very big on tracking data and generating those reports.
And to further answer your question, all the applicants have done what's called their reporting, and they've reported through Q2 of this year. So it's all in Drive, but I can show it at the next meeting so you can see where you're funded and all that. I think it's good to bring to the next meeting.
Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Congratulations.
Next up, we have Serenity Paws. So Serenity Paws is asking for 450,000. There's their budget.
I will not be voting in favor of this applicant. I really struggle with the idea of these opioid dollars going towards. And during their presentation, they shared that they're using the money to help vaccinate and spay and neuter the animals. While I appreciate that a pet can be a barrier for someone wanting to seek rehabilitation, it's just too far of a distance, a dotted line connection of how these dollars would be used. And the idea of 5 to 12 dogs a year for $450,000, I can't vote for this, so. To kick off the discussion.
You know, I thought you were starting by saying you had a conflict, so just a point of clarity, anybody have conflicts on previous three? They can put in those, no conflicts, okay, back to the comments, anybody want to respond?
Well, that was my concern last time as well. Again, back to what we've said before, best and highest use. And looking at other organizations asking for those types of things that directly impact what we're trying to impact. With knowing that the Humane Society does offer the services and some rescues do as well. I don't see a direct line in opioid dollars as well, although it's, you know, a great program. I can't support opioid dollars going to this as well.
Well, I would just point out too that our bucket for scope of work 4 is basically depleted, if not overextended. And the impact, as you mentioned, and as Lauren mentioned, in this area is so tangential. I just don't think that it fits. So I would also not be supportive of it. More because we have more important things to fund that we've been funding, I think. Not that
Agreed.
this isn't important, but it's just a higher need in other areas.
Any other comments? So I don't have a motion to, but this it seems like, so. With that,
Die for lack of motion.
yeah, I don't have a motion. So that it has not advanced, to funding, it will be moved to the non-awarded applicant section. Okay, with that, we'll move to Step Springs. Okay, Step Springs has made a request of $500,000. Their budget. Really mission budget per se, but they have outcomes. Any comments on Step Springs, starting with Commissioner Gagne?
Yeah, I am fully in support of this, and I know that our bucket is really getting full in this area.
It's overflowed.
We'll transfer money,
Yes.
just like that limit.
Yes,
basically.
But I do think, and I think it's wise to be aware of how much we are extending in this. At the same point, I think that this program in particular is has a proven track record of being highly effective and being able to provide outcomes that many of the organizations we've heard from just really struggle to provide. Way back when we started this, when there was talk about the needs of our community, one of those things were beds for exactly this type of thing. So I think this is an excellent opportunity for us to really help this organization open this in our community. And I just think that there are very few programs that have this level of effectiveness, and we're really fortunate to have them to our community. So we want a motion. I'm happy to make it.
The comments, Commissioner Stone.
Ditto.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
So I move that we fund Step Springs, the requested amount subject to bucket appropriation.
Second.
She can have it.
Comments?
Can I have a clarifying question?
Yes.
So we're looking at this sheet we have, which is really helpful. I really like it, but on item 4 on the agenda, the total SOW, is that total for the day? Or is that total for number 4?
Are you talking about?
So
I
that's
can't, the third one.
For on the agenda.
total for 4. Yeah, but those are different. These are ones that we're doing.
Well, why don't we ask about the,
On item 4 on the agenda, that should say total SOW 4. My apologies, the 4.
Okay, got it. I just didn't want to do the math. It's a lot of big numbers. I kept trying to get Lynette to do it. So I thought we just asked. Okay.
So.
any other discussion on the motion?
No, there's 3 motions.
There was 3 motions?
There's a motion and 3,
There was definitely several seconds.
yeah, 3 seconds, 3
Yeah.
seconds.
All right, let's vote then. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Pass. Next up is safe side recovery. Safe side recovery, that's for $439,594. Part of it in front of us last year is not a very number. Outcomes of different.
I don't see that in my, actually,
Safe side doesn't life continues DBA, South Safe Side. It's right after step schools. It's also life continues.
I don't have it in this packet. That's okay, I'll look at it.
Okay, no, I have an extra packet. Life continues DBA Safe Side Recovery.
Was this in July? When was this presentation?
What'd you say? I couldn't hear
Do
you.
you know when this presentation took place? Because I can't find it.
There are two names, maybe that's the reason life continues stuff with themselves like.
There, okay. Yeah. Is someone here from this organization?
Anybody from Safe Side here? No.
I'm just gonna have them give us like a 2-minute reminder.
So I'm happy to kick off some discussion if
Sure.
no one else is. Again, this is one of those things where this is another pretty good sized request. This is also a peer recovery from my memory of this. And I'm kind of on the, okay. We've funded many similar type programs, so I think we just need to be aware of that, you know, regardless of the quality, even if we had 10 amazing of these programs, do we need and want to fund all 10, or especially considering how full this bucket is at this point? So I think that that's the view that I'm looking at this one through at this point.
And my concern is the housing availability and the vouchers that I've had on many of them. There is a lack of, and so I get that's the goal, but if they're not there, you're not gonna reach the goal. So the lack of housing availability and how they're actually gonna accomplish this in this particular environment, I just don't see the connection.
Any other comments on this one?
I would think that maybe we just, it doesn't sound like we're gonna get a motion to move things forward for funding. But I also think that they probably are doing good work and that we should encourage them to continue to engage with us going forward.
So then the cycle was July, there's another application cycle in January, so my communication to each of them or move forward is that they can try again in January.
Well, I think specifically for the, I don't, like the pause, the serenity pause, I don't think we're gonna probably fund it.
Gotcha, okay, so thank you.
But this one is a stronger possibility, so we should really encourage those. Obviously, I can't speak for future boards, but okay.
Well, specifically because as metrics come in and there are other peer recovery type programs, it gives us an opportunity to evaluate the work that they've done, and if we want to, you know, look to funding a different organization that we feel like maybe is going to have, you know, better performance metrics or whatever it is.
Thank you for that, and thanks, Commissioner Allen, I'll make sure I, difference in the communication to them about, you know, how it's favorably received, and look forward to future applications. Okay, great.
On that pause one, if I could just add to, it may or may not matter in our communication to them, because I think that the board obviously has been clear about our feelings, but I actually would even question if it meets the state requirements. I don't know. That may be another piece that we want to look into more about whether or not we actually feel like it would meet that and we could even consider it again. That's one of the concerns I would have.
She's talking about the Serenity Pause one there,
Right, yeah, thank you.
not this one.
All right,
Okay, next up is the UPass region This was a larger request, we could have somebody from the past, I believe. And, I want to highlight that in addition to the budget, they did send some clarifying information regarding some of the outcomes. So we added it here, and it was a letter, so we just tried to do a PowerPoint with 2 slides, so I'll give you a chance to read the first portion of the letter.
Just so that the board is aware, Tiny is going to be en route at some point. He was stuck on a Tiny, James. He was stuck out on a MAPS call or a Minnesota call.
So we can come back to this one, if you're gonna have questions, or we can continue with this, or what's the group's preference?
Yeah. I would like us to just reorder this.
Thanks.
He's doing the exact work right now that. Well, I'm wondering though, if we feel like that this is a good program. that we don't necessarily need it here. We haven't had other people here. If we can take care of business, we should take care of it.
I think I asked the question, Cost Springs, you guys use this program.
A lot of.
Yeah, and so it is an expensive program. How do you measure its effectiveness? Do you feel like it's like incredibly valuable? Is it like a premium? Is it like necessary? Is it, because it seems like a lot of it is going towards that piece.
I think there are 2 better experts to speak to that, but I think what I would say for the specific work that we're doing, Gelato is a really important piece of that because it works differently than any other type of reporting we do for the fire department for a standard manual. To try to connect resources and convene that, but Stein or Steve, if you had something to add to that.
So we are customer number 1, Gelato, as a trivial fact, but we use it for all of our stuff in community public health, because we keep all of our patient records in there, we're able to use it. So we're tied to the fire system, so later when our other one comes up, when a fire engine runs, we can get that information to Gelato, we can request them to look for it and directly send a referral to us for people who are in that space. So for someone who's had an overdose, we know very quickly that they had an overdose and then we can respond to it. So there's features like that. All of our encounters are in there. All of our data for anything we do comes from there. So we recently did an RFP just to look at everything. And for us, it's still the least expensive option to stay here rather than to go to outside. There's only maybe 2 other programs out of the many, many ones that responded that are even close. Price wise, and they're not the same. Does that help? I'll answer more.
No, I think that helps. And with my experience of working with the city and through homelessness and of course, opioids is a big connection of that. Data is like the fundamental base layer thing that determines all decisions. Even in this group, we've talked about data. And so it just seems like a very appropriate thing for us to kind of, standing up to what we've been saying, how important data is.
Yeah, I would say Gelato gives us, the fire department, the ability to connect multiple data resources to the patient.
If Jake or everything from Teller County perspective, we'll know him.
For us, we've kind of been tripping over our feet when it comes to technology. County being a rural community compared to Colorado Springs and some parts of El Paso. So us having a tool that's able to track, I think is incredibly important. However, it is a very large ask. I do know that there was at one point a discussion that we would partially fund some of it. And then he would come back next year to fund the rest of it and come back with some of that data. I don't remember which ones he actually said he could do without until next year. Do you remember, Commissioner Stone?
I do, thank you. And actually, it's up here on the budget. If you see the shared referrals here, year 2 would be the secondary funding. So it would be, instead of $799, it'd be that less 116. So 600 and whatever that works out to.
Okay. I think it would be a very important tool for us to have up there as far as referrals. That way there'd be communication between all the police departments, fire departments and the ambulance.
Yeah, and just to finish up that thought is, because I have, dug in a little bit more on this is, and not specifically on what they're doing, but just the existing condition that's going on up in Teller County. And the best way to describe it is that all of our care opportunities, whether it's groups like Mr. Conley's, or things through community partnership, through UC Health, other different things, is that it's all fragmented. And this allows all of that to no longer be fragmented and actually then be able to just immediately see, these are the resources that we have, and be able to refer out to individual ones of those, because everything would all be under kind of one data umbrella, one services umbrella that, and this would be the organization to do that. The UPass Regional Health Center, they cover pretty much the northern 2/3 of the county, but their service would not be limited to that. It would actually cover the entirety.
So, could we do sharing of information if they were on the same type of program that we currently are on in Colorado Springs?
That'd be a very big challenge. This makes it much easier.
So,
Just
but
connect all together.
if we had this, if they had this program,
If the two hubs share with each other,
that's what I'm asking.
we'd have to have an agreement, but in theory, it's
Yes.
possible from a technology.
Because I would imagine individuals wander up the pass, right?
Yeah. I've been known to happen.
Don't you head up the pass to go fishing?
Well, but
Within
not
the-
usually when I'm
within the
taking my
system-
drugs.
Within the system, you can do referrals to other agencies, you can have shared care teams, as long as the care management piece, HIPAA piece, PAA pieces are in place as appropriate.
Yeah,
You can do a lot of data share.
okay. Because I think that's another value is that it's really the two counties be able to communicate on different individuals. If there's a component of that. So,
But this was more about like mental health services, if I remember correctly, and connecting people. And I remember asking about sustainability and that they would ultimately end up charging the care providers to have access to the system. Does this all sound familiar?
Yes,
to the
that's
rest of you?
correct. They're gonna charge a fee,
Yeah,
a service fee.
so this was sort of like to help them get off the ground and then going forward. So it's not for like, I mean, I guess fire in that sense might be connecting people, but it's not their fire department using it. It's mental health service providers using this programming or this system, if I remember correctly.
It's somewhat that, but it's also the behavioral health response in our county. Most of that flows through UPass Regional Health. Because through their community paramedics program, their behavioral health program, for most of the county, that's the only real source of immediate behavioral health treatment.
yeah,
And then from there, they have to refer out to resources. And the services that they currently do in behavioral health, which Findings Out doing right now, is, it's all mobile. They're going to the patient where they are. And then if necessary, they actually will connect through telehealth to reach, somebody for that specific moment. But then they're referring out to all the different services that particular patient may need. Everything from transportation to treatment to whatever. Is that accurate, Jake?
Very accurate.
okay.
So, I think that this obviously has a very real world implication for getting people connected to services, but also I remember being very interested in the data that it can provide. We are always looking for data about what is happening. Are we making progress? Are these people coming, back into, addiction over and over again? Are we able to actually successfully help people complete these type of programs? And Tiny tells me that is something that's going to be valuable out of this. So I am interested, though it is a large number. And so I have a question. Amanda, have you been tracking the number that we are over our bucket that we need to be appropriated in the next meeting at this point?
All of that, like this second.
Okay. I'm just going to say, I think it's a pretty big number, which I am comfortable with, because I think this is a very important number. We've talked about moving some from youth prevention, which I think again, I'm comfortable with that, but I am going to put out there that if we fund this at a very high level, I'm gonna start to get really uncomfortable with continuing to run that number up in that bucket towards the end of these. So if that's my concern at this point is anyone feeling very strongly about others, do we want to start having a little bit of a conversation around priorities?
Can we fund this taking out year two?
Yes,
So it would be 100,000, sixty
it's 683,085.
And then he'll come back.
And then they'd have to come back and reapply for the second year. And I believe from their briefing is that Commissioner Nelson is correct that this is seed money to get it going. The only ongoing cost they have is the referral tool, which it sounds like they're hoping to offset through the fees that they charge service providers.
Right. That's how I remember.
Yeah.
So we have a motion?
We have a.
I have a question, a money question. So when you were talking about we have 13.5 million that we could pull down, that money in theory can be allocated for future applicants. So is that true? And then today, if you look at that grand total, it says 6.7 million. Is that the number that we basically have to work with for all of these applications today? Or is it not so cut and dry?
It's not so cut and dried. Based on how prior facilitation kind of set this up, so like a really brief overview. These statements of work that are identified don't correspond to the exhibit E uses that I have to report to in cost. These were defined by this council very early on and then divided up. So when you guys put something in SOW 2, it doesn't end up in an SOW 2 in the state system. There are completely different reporting categories that I have to match it to. So the definition and the buckets are specific to this council. So that 6.7 is what was actually put in the 2-year plan. So that's what
Two-year plan starting with the when?
the 2-year plan that they no longer really do, which was a 24-25 2-year plan, and then the state changed their model and now it's annual. That makes way more sense.
Okay.
So
But in theory, sorry, if you've interrupted me. In theory, this council has $6.7 million left to spend in 25, year 25.
no, so in, so far out of the awarded amount, you guys have awarded 6.7 million. I'm sorry, I should have totaled that SOW remaining on the other side.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong.
Column. Close to 7 remaining,
Okay.
because you guys currently have like $13 million allocated, right? And you've already spent 6.7 of it.
So it looks like of the awards that we've done today, $2,850,823 roughly.
If we approved UPass,
Right.
without UPass, it'd be about 2.1.
Yeah, so we're about 1.8 over on your guys' defined bucket. But again, that is just something that this council has defined and can change it anytime they do.
I'll get to you in a second, but I also think that when we set up these buckets, what is that, 2.5 years ago or whatever it was a lot of shooting in the dark of this is what we think we want these percentages to be. And as we're getting into this work, we're seeing where the actual need is and where the funding is going to. So I think this board should think about that too. I think everybody is, but it's just good to say that, especially for our committee members that are here.
And then I just want to add one other piece to that, which again, I'm comfortable with. I agree. We set these up. We're now in the process of looking at what's really valuable. And I think what is valuable means that we should adjust. At the same point, I want to point out that we're talking about very big numbers, 13 million, 7 million, that's 20 million. We're talking about a total for the next 18 years of 70 million. So I also think that we need to be very aware of if there are programs that, again, we want to continue to fund for year after year for a couple of years, that we just be mindful of that 70 million, you know, we're talking about, yes, we could spend all that this year, but that's going to leave not a lot in that. So I just when I say I'm getting concerned, it's not because I don't think we should expand out of that bucket, because I absolutely do, but I think we're getting to the point where we have to start having those conversations about do we blow through this money in 4 years at this rate? And what does that mean? Is that what we want to do? And if the answer is yes, we feel like that's the right thing to do. I think it's easy to miss the big kind of picture on this, and I just want to bring it forward as a conversation item.
Yeah, thank you, and I vigorously agree with both of you. And, you know, when we started this, we put a ton of money into youth prevention because we really wanted that, right? We wanted youth prevention. And ultimately, what we got and what we found was it's not out there yet for youth prevention in a way that this board has found to be meaningful, which is why we have such a large amount remaining in that. But we are seeing that for actual recovery, actual transitions, people who are actively affected by opioid addiction, that there are not only a variety of services that offer it, whether, again, it's things like Mr. Conley running, a sober home facility, Step Springs coming in and doing that. We're seeing different types of things. And so we're funding it. And, and I think it's probably a good idea, as we, we're going to be doing it anyways, we're forcing ourselves to do it, but is looking at these, these buckets again, and let's do some adjustments. But when it comes to, this particular applicant, I think the several things that people have already mentioned that I won't repeat that are really, really positive about it. But the last point of it that I really do like about it is it's going to give us stuff for the future to be able to help with behavioral health addiction within Teller County. But then the ongoing cost is not going to be there at the same level it was to get it started. And I think that makes it that part a real benefit.
Well, Commissioner Stone, to your point, we did give one chance to grow up that marketing campaign grant that's going to target youth too. So to your point, youth are going to start being targeted now. I don't know when, but and really hard in the schools and parents and youth groups and stuff. So to add to your point, that's actually going to come into play very soon as well.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I would actually make a motion that we just fund the entire thing. The difference is not that big of a difference, the 116,000. And then we don't have to fund year 2 next year, which would free up dollars next year that we know we're gonna fund anyway, probably. So I'll make a motion to fund this as requested.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any other discussion?
It saved us the presentation.
Yeah.
I need to turn around.
Yeah, would somebody make a friendly amendment to his motion that's subject to?
Subject to reallocation of money. Yeah. I'll make a friendly amendment to my own motion. Okay. All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Before we move to the next one, just one other point, germane to the conversation is SOW 5 becomes the applicant. So for last cycle funding applied in January and this cycle funding applied in July, we haven't had an applicant in that section. Not to say it's not important, but I can easily move since the last 2 cycles for everyone funding.
There you go.
Okay, with that, we'll go to.
Yeah, what was the one that we did fund in that? I thought we did fund some, was it CSP?
Higher than me, I would say, what's the first one? we got?
Wasn't it, didn't you guys get some funding on that, Mark, for what? For the victim advocate part of that? Yeah, we did. I think that's the one we funded on.
Yeah, there's
Yes.
one. That's why. Okay, next slide is
Only on
Phoenix. So the Phoenix is asking for 500,000. They are also in SOW 4. And we have a representative in the room, and here's their budget.
One of the things I liked about this is the recognition that to stay sober, you need a support system, and often people have to break away from relationships that were maybe encouraging the drug abuse or, you know. And so I appreciate that this allows for that new opportunity of building new community that is supportive of sobriety. I'm just not sure, and because I'm new and you all tell me they are an existing organization, but I mean, we're approving other applicants that are similar. I just remember at one point hearing something about this council wants to be focused on innovation. I don't know how much that comes into play. I do like this one and I would be willing to support it.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's not paying attention.
I actually like this one too. I do feel like, I feel like this one could also kind of be prevention, because again, you're connecting people who, may be in a better place right now, but you're kind of preventing, relapse. Yes, so I do like this one. As I said, though, I am getting a bit like, how much of this do we want to spend in these first couple of years? I really appreciate that this organization included that they are scalable. I am interested in funding this, but I wonder if we might consider a different amount and then having them come back and tell us about their impact and the usage in our area. And then we could consider, you know, whether that's an ongoing thing. Because again, I feel like, I just feel like we're making a lot of huge investments right now, but maybe this is one that's smart to say, like, let's see how this one goes. This is a pretty large ask, as there have been many, but yeah, that's just my thought on this one, because it does seem to be valuable, but I'd be more comfortable maybe in like half of that.
And on the flip side of the innovation, they've also been around a long time, and so they've worked out a lot of those kinks, and it's a very, very good program.
Successful.
Very successful, which is also something we're putting into that we already know is successful. I don't have a problem with scaling it and giving them a portion as well and having them come back, because I think anything will help. I would even make a motion to cut it in half and give them 250,000. But I also would support funding this organization.
You was for funding them
200,
at the request or at a half? Is that what you're?
I would
That's what it
support
sounded like.
half because
Okay.
we're running low. Because they are scalable. If you're agreeable to that.
I would second that, just so, again, we could come back with metrics.
Yes.
250, I still think is a pretty
Well,
significant.
make a motion then.
I'll make a motion to fund it at 250,000 and ask them to come back with their metrics next year, since it's scalable.
Subject
To allocation, appropriation, what other word do I need?
And I would second that.
Are you good with those words?
Yeah.
Okay.
Amanda, are you good with those?
Well, I was just gonna mention in the discussion section after the motion was made that this applicant did list statements of work 2 and 4 to Commissioner Geiger's point. And so when we were going through these, the facilitator asked them to pick just one to make it easier for you all to review them based on their statements of work. But this could easily fit into statement 2 if each, or statement of work 2 if you choose to fund it out of that one.
No
Let's
problem.
put it in 2.
I support that.
I mean, if we're gonna do that, I would just make a motion to fund.
At the full amount.
I'd be okay with that.
Okay, I reversed my motion. And I make a new motion to fund the $500,000 to Phoenix out of which bucket again?
Two.
Two. I'm losing track of my, keep writing on my paper. 2,
Keep your pen on your own paper.
that's right. And your popcorn.
All right, so we have a motion to fund at the full amount, in buckets 2. We have a second. Did you second that, Carrie?
Yes.
All right, any other discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, and the final one of the section, we're right on track in terms of our schedule.
Which is
Is,
amazing.
last one in this section. So with that, we will bring them up at 45,750. Have a budget listed per se, but here are some of their outcomes.
Jake, did you do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you tell me again how that worked?
So it was kind of a generic training. When I went through it, we went through what was called the admin portion of the training. There was some stuff that I think needed to be updated as far as lesson plans, things like that. They were still doing breaths for CPR. So my concern with the outdate, and then it kind of covers nationally, and it's not really focused on just our area and the impacts of our area. Speaking from an officer safety standpoint, there were some aspects that I saw from body cam footage, using as examples that I would be concerned about for officer safety, and then monkey see, monkey do. For online training for 4 hours, $47,000 seems like an awful lot to make every single officer take a 4-hour online class. I would be more apt to possibly having maybe from an administrator standpoint, the sergeants or the corporals, or maybe a train the trainer type class, and only have 5 or 10 people go to this class instead of all 65, I think is what they're asking to send for the training. And have those 5 or 10 come back and do a training day and teach the rest of everyone what they do. That's kind of what we do in law enforcement. We send our trainer people out, they go get their information, they come back and they teach everybody else. At $450 for a 4-hour class is wow.
There was some discussion, I think that I'm remembering previously about different trainings that other
Yeah,
law enforcement had utilized. I don't know if Fountain is Fountain open to that, because I think we really want to support our law enforcement in this, but at the same point, if there's a better training that maybe they're not aware of, like, I wonder if that discussion has happened or could happen.
so I went through this class. I also had our level 3 advanced negotiator sit through this class as well, who is also a trainer for negotiations, and is also a trainer for ICAS, and is also a trainer for CIT. So CIT and ICAT, CIT is your big one that everybody likes to use when it comes to training in Colorado, and that's a 3-day course, I think now. ICAT is your meat and taters version of that, so it's an 8-hour class. Those 2 trainings are a lot more beneficial for the law enforcement aspect side than this would be. And there's a lot of ICAT and CIT in these that they would already have. So I think it's not cost effective. I wouldn't necessarily be supportive of the full amount. I would be supportive of maybe at most 10 people going through.
So because Fountain is not here today to
Yeah.
speak to this, again, I would want to support them, but I don't know if you've had any additional conversations about whether they would prefer to look at a different training based on any of the feedback.
I don't know.
Or maybe is this something that we could wait and get feedback from Fountain on?
With Carrie's comment, and I would move that we table this one until our next meeting. And get word out to Fountain with, you know, your feedback, and then also other feedback from other law enforcement agencies on, you know, the trainings that they do. There might be some interagency opportunities as well, to get even better training perhaps.
Yeah.
But
Commander, do you have any comments on it?
No, I mean, I don't know. Just based on theirs, I don't know if ICAT will be really similar to theirs, but I do think CIT is probably more similar to what we all do, and very, very beneficial. But I would agree that without them here, because I know a lot of their ask too, $16,000 is in overtime funds to pay for them to complete the course. So I just don't know if there's a better opportunity or a better program out there that they should consider.
So I would need support seconds.
Second is motion
Sure,
table.
yeah, and I think we want to make clear, like, I want to make clear to them that when we communicate them for the next meeting that we want to support them, but we feel like maybe we need to have more discussion and understand what they.
I think what I'm hearing is we maybe want to support law enforcement. I'm kidding. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. We have discussion on motion to table for next meeting we have done.
I'll second that.
I think we already got a second. We're in the discussion phase.
No.
Okay. All right, any other discussion? No, all right, all in favor of tabling till next meeting? Aye. Any opposed? Jane, will you just get a message out to
Absolutely, make sure that invite the next meeting. That concludes this section. We're moving right into CEC Analytics. And at the last meeting, a similar motion was made to ask CEC Analytics to come back and present. They weren't seen as viable in their current application. So their CEO has come back from Calgary once again, and brought this applicant to present to us on the topic of CATPC analytics and the potential wastewater treatment. You'll recall, we had something similar happen with the marijuana, high concentrated cannabis RFP, where we had a bunch of discussion on it, and then we had an expert come and present, and that turned into an RFP with funding. So with that, I'll turn it over to Paul.
Yeah.
before you get started, thank you for agreeing to come back down here. I know it's just right around the corner from you. So
Good morning.
yeah,
Well worth it.
thank you.
Most welcome. I hear a lot about the need for data. So I thought actually data. So I have some copies that I'll pass around to the council.
Yeah.
This will show the diversity of the substances that we see in almost every single sample.
Get started.
Very important. I will note, I have 30 minutes to speak, which is fantastic. I think you hold it. I'll try to leave with some time for questions. That subset of what you are viewing at the moment is a subset of over 50,000 compounds, unique chemical signatures in wastewater that we track twice a week in our programs, wastewater. We see a variety of fentanyls, that include carfentanil, ribofentanil, sufentanil, and we track these substances alongside benzodiazepines, nitazines, poisoning agents that are responsible for a lot of these overdoses. In addition to these compounds, we also look for naloxone, so we can actually see how much naloxone is being used as it relates to how much fentanyl is actually supplied. This is the original size of the project. I'm even showing some data. This is actually from a homeless shelter in Calgary that we tracked with the number of overdoses recorded, the fentanyl that we found in the wastewater, and also the trends. And you can see here, there's an issue that is occurring, and that is with getting supply maintained for them. So a lot of the polysubstances that we're finding from this. Okay, so our project is, well, the original project, I should say, was looking at Colorado Springs and Woodland Park. I will note that we have an MOU already in place with Woodland Park. We had presented Colorado Springs with that MOU. We haven't heard an answer back. That was one thing that we didn't talk about last time. Since I was here last, we actually collected samples from Woodland Park. In fact, samples will be shipped today to our lab in Calgary for analysis, second batch. So I was hoping to present some data. I don't have that, but we will be presenting some data.
Is that in your carry on going back? What you did?
Be off to Chicago next, same meetings, but yeah, samples arrive. It's super easy. You need 25 milliliters of water. That's it. And analysis reporting is about a week. So in a week, you have a full spectrum. Monday, Wednesday samples, you get the weekend effect of what actually is happening. You have a lot of high fluctuations in tourism, perhaps in some particular areas. We can capture that. So the original proposal was really to look at Colorado Springs and Woodland Park. There were some discussions last time about the ability to scale other particular areas within the counties that we could actually also monitor. Yes, we can. Next slide. So, as I mentioned, Colorado Springs, Woodland Park, but there's also Cripple Creek, Monument, Callahan, and also Fountain. These towns and villages, cities, municipalities have wastewater infrastructure that we can actually sample from. So they are doable. We can do that, so it is feasible. Colorado Springs has 2 wastewater treatment plants that covers the north and also the south part of both. Next slide. This is where it gets interesting. So this municipality had 3 unique events during the time that we've been sampling since April. And I thought this was interesting to mention, to showcase. For law enforcement in the room, very interested in this. There was a police drug seizure, one of the most reported record seizures in this particular area on June 16th, June 14th. And you see here a massive spike of fentanyl. So we can actually track fentanyl, what is consumed and what is dumped out of the drain. This fentanyl spike was actually from fentanyl being dumped down the drain. So was the response effective? It wasn't consumed because I can actually see the metabolites of fentanyl. So we can actually see how effective drug seizures actually are throughout the city. In fact, it happened 3 times. We saw fentanyl and also sufentanil. So we have L-fentanyl, carfentanil, fentanyl, brefentanyl, nearfentanyl, remifentanil, sufentanil have long derivatives of fentanyl that are actually found. It's not just fentanyl. We've also plotted naloxone as response. You can see here that naloxone, there's some trends, there's some peaks. This is kind of interesting because there's not that much fentanyl, yet we see a really high amount of naloxone. Next slide. Well, oh, I haven't moved up their slide. Actually, it's on these. All right. Second figure. This is because the drug supply shifted, changed. There were nitazines and xylazines in the supply. It required a lot more naloxone for your overdoses. Before. Find them. We project based off the wastewater data the need for an amount of naloxone in particular areas. The second event that really actually stood out to us was the law enforcement created a safer community, safer streets community initiative. That allowed law enforcement to have targeted approaches for open areas of drugs and also trespassing. How effective was this program? So what we did is we measured fentanyl, we summed up all fentanyl before and all fentanyl after that program. What we saw is that fentanyl was reduced by 77%. That's impressive. It means that that program actually worked. It's quantifiable, proved it.
So you're saying that policing actually works?
Amazing.
Thank you.
I'm glad I could prove this. The third event that was also very interesting is during this time, I think it's the next slide. There was a closure of a safe injection site within the city. How did that impact drug supply? What did we find? What did we see? When we close these institutions, the challenges spread within communities. They're not a focal point in enrollment. So you have resources with capacity strains, so the first responders, you're going to neighborhoods throughout the city. Your accessibility to naloxone is now reduced. Not a simple point. We find that. We also find the fact that there are a different drug supply in the town that we sample. Because we're finding a lot more, this is the slide, figure 2, actually it's up here. Figure 2 on the piece of paper, it's on the slide. This is where you have a lot of nitazines, then naloxone is not effective. Your plan A right now is not effective based on your drug. Get out all that. Obviously, this is the early stages. This is the beginning of July. That was actually July 4th. And we are continuing to monitor every Monday, every Wednesday for the entire year. So we are actually working with law enforcement, we're working with paramedics, we're working with mayors and council members to actually look at the data, look at resource distribution, how effective these programs actually are, and also educate first responders on what we're finding and how much naloxone we actually need. Last time I talked about the requirement and the need of data and this type of data. And I'd like to propose as this data is in the proposal, we suggested and we proposed to do a dashboard. Well, one of the previous proposals that was funded actually has a dashboard. Why would we do another dashboard? It doesn't make sense. This data can be overlaid with that same dashboard. EMS callouts, emergency callouts, we can track all of that and we can overlay it. So I'm happy to offer that. I'm happy to integrate this data. I think it's really, really needed. This also is scalable. The original proposal was 2 cities, 6 easily. And happy to do that. So how am I doing for time? Because I probably have a lot of time for questions.
Open it up some questions and we keep going. Like that's your last.
I think that's it. Yeah.
So
Thank you.
Ryan Paul's a PhD chemist, so take it away with first notes.
So just to get to the practicality of like, I mean, Woodland Park, Colorado Springs, they're not really comparable. Because obviously Colorado Springs is much massive. So yeah, we have 2 wastewater facilities, but we also have a lot of substations and stuff like that. I mean, it would be nice to know like how much drugs is at our rescue mission. So do you actually like find a wastewater like site that you can like take the lid off and go down and dip in and that's what you do?
Oh, yeah.
So you get strategic about where we're gonna measure this. I'm sure you'll sit down with city leaders or whatever and kind of go through that. I did talk to utilities. They're interested. They actually know about the MOU that you talked about. So it's a big organization, but not everybody knows everything that's going on there. And I just talked to Travis at the top. So, and we were out of town last week, so I've been back to it. But I like the idea, but that's the piece. I mean, we might want 12 reporting sites at Colorado Springs, right?
Yeah.
So, all right.
So that is doable. One of the interesting things about COVID, and I've been doing this for probably 8 years. We did the comparison between cannabis consumption before and after legalization to see how that impacted the use of cannabis 2012. But back to COVID. One of the challenges with COVID is the actionability, and I believe that was primarily based off where the samples were taken. If I said Colorado Springs has COVID, you'd be like, yeah, who doesn't? Or, how does that help you out? But if I said a long-term care home ward, Unit B has COVID, that is a little bit different. And so I took that same perspective. I looked at a population that's following, that uses drugs. And I said, well, what about emergency shelters? What about homeless shelters? What about these key particular areas? Can we actually capture that population? Yes, we can. Unfortunately, to this day, whenever I'm walking into a facility, I'm always looking for the 4-inch grass caps and 4. And I hate doing that, but that's where my mind goes. I am the engineer behind the scenes. I work with facilities to find those caps. So I work in hospitals. I can do a hospital loop. That's how granular we can get. We can do schools too. We can do lift stations, pump stations. We can do neighborhood level. In fact, we've done neighborhood intelligence in other states and also in other provinces. We can actually project based off demographics.
So parents can do their own home.
My question was there's a limit. Yeah, that's all. But all that to say, everybody can go that great.
Right. Yeah, so I don't know if Michelle is prepared to speak to any of this, but our previous meeting, Deanne Ryberg, the interim director of public health, she did do some work with her team and she provided me, and I think we probably just need to send it to everybody so they can see that they did some work. Michelle, I don't know if you are prepared to speak to any of that or not, but
I would love to ask Logan Hyder, who oversees our data analytics program, to speak to that a little bit.
okay, great.
Which piece would you like, or just the whole?
It's kind of just a general kind of summary of what you all sent, to me about the research you did about who's using it, how it's used, and thoughts from the public health perspective.
Sure. So we sat down with Paul virtually,
Yes.
and talked with him a little longer, and then also talked with Pueblo County Public Health, who is using a different company, but is also doing wastewater surveillance for substance use. And they have a public facing dashboard that overlays the wastewater data with all their other data sources, including law enforcement, some other things. And then we also talked to Denver County City Public Health, who funded it through their ROAC, or their opioid abatement council, and they had a 1-year pilot
that is still getting off the ground, and that data is not public yet, but they shared their reports with us. And so the metric may be different since it's a different company, but it was the amount of substance per 1,000 people. And both health departments were still trying to determine what was actionable on the public health side, because they were the ones responsible. It's in the way those agreements were set up for acting on the data. They were sharing it with partners, but still trying to figure out with partners whose responsibility it was, who was gonna do what to really act on the data, because it was fascinating and added to the picture. But it did have to be overlaid with other data. And so they were still trying to figure that piece out. And so that, I guess that's still a question mark for us. And so maybe you could speak to that, Paul, about some of the actions. But on the public health side, we were trying to determine like, okay, how can we make an impact with this if it was to come to our.
And so I think my primary interest to that point around like being able to identify we don't know. We keep talking about how do we have outcomes? How do we know if we're making a difference with all the things that we're funding? I think we're already taking the actions in a lot of cases, which is we're funding all these programs that are supposed to be reducing this in our community, but how do we know it's actually working? This is the metric that I think that we can point to as a ROAC and say, are we doing the right things? So one thing that we were kind of talking about on the side, and we talked about this today at our public health meeting as well, is that we've talked about this here, that the Healthy Kids Survey, for various reasons, and we won't recap all of that, is not a great tool for our community and hasn't been utilized. So we're really struggling with understanding what is going on with our youth. First of all, it's not the best because it's a self-reporting system anyway. So even if we were to devise another survey, which we've talked about, which can also be expensive, difficult to administer, if we could get down to even like a school level, we're not asking kids anymore. We could actually figure out, are our kids doing this or not? And we wouldn't have to worry about whether it was, there was reliably self-reporting or whatever. And we've really been struggling with that. In fact, public health talked today about how there are some grants that you don't have a measure to be able to prove, and we may not be able to get those grants again to continue working in this space. So I just think from that perspective, if we truly even could drill down, that doesn't mean we can go to every school clearly, but again, I think that there are some very strategic things that we could look at that could close the gaps in data that we are seeing and justify what we are doing here or not, and give us ideas, hey, this isn't working, we need to do something else. So that's kind of my perspective on this. I would suggest, it's kind of complicated. I just would suggest that maybe we even need a subcommittee here to talk about this and bring a full proposal back on exactly how we would want to use it. Or exactly like, what are the sites, or what could we drill down? What is that specific proposal? How much is it going to cost? If we say we want to go do these specific schools, or, try to find a realistic way to identify that in our community. And I noticed you talked about the cities, and I think I said this kind of last time as well. We have a lot of metro districts that serve the majority of the unincorporated area as well. And I don't know what your situation, obviously septics are a whole different thing. But we might want to say, like, what is a representative sample? We're not going to be able to do every single one of these, but maybe come up with a subcommittee that could work on a more detailed idea of what this committee might want to do.
I think that there's a lot of options, first and foremost. Back to your comments, I actually work with Wildfire very closely. They have, I think, 8 or 12 targets. We do non-targeted. We have about 50,000. We have, I think, 25 or 30 fentanyls that we track. So they actually use us to help us for analysis. And they're a great company. They've actually done this for years, which is fantastic to see. We have the flexibility. I think that was a part of a challenge with this proposal was, where do I start? Usually we start at the municipality level and we work our way down to more grander levels. And we have that flexibility. It is doable. It's just kind of prioritizing. So the question from
yeah, I think that not really a question, it's more of a comment, and goes back to what she said about, so yes, we have the data, we have the stats, then what, who's responsible for that? I can tell you, being in charge of the Metro Division, we have a drug problem here in Colorado Springs. We have fentanyl, we have heroin, we have meth, we have coke. Fentanyl's decreased as far as our seizures, meth has gone up. We went from 1980, about $2,400 or 2,400 overdose deaths in 1980 in the United States to about 110,000 in 2022 to 80,000 in 2024. So we know we have a problem. I can, like, if we go to SRM, we know there's drugs at SRM. I just think my own perspective is, yes, we get the stats, that's great. We know there's an issue here. I'd rather see money go to prevention, treatment, things like that than putting money to identify an issue that we already know we have, and we already have drugs in our community. So that's just my personal opinion.
So Mike, and I understand that 100%. But I believe what this is that you can see trends. And so we would be able to measure if we're succeeding or not succeeding. Because we would see reduced rates or elevated rates. We would see different areas of the city that would be going up or going down. And we could discuss reasons why that. It would bring a new opportunity to have dialogue about programs and stuff. Is our community using drugs? There's no doubt that that's happening. But it's like, are we doing better or worse? I mean, we have a coroner that just told us that we're 18% down in suicide. Well, that's given us a great number, right? So, and youth is 60% down, right? So 60% down in youth suicide. That's a great number. If we can have that number again next year, I'll feel even better about it. But yet, those are tangible. We can measure the bodies, right? I mean, I hate to be so morbid, but I think that's where I'm with Carrie on this, is that we have no way of gauging if we're doing a good job. Right?
Throwing money at things doesn't necessarily solve problems.
Right.
I mean, we've seen that in lots of areas. Just because it came up today, and I was talking about education as one of those. We can see in a system that we've thrown money at education for years and years and years. It's not getting better. So I don't want to just keep throwing money at things without being able to measure and say, yes, what we're doing is the right thing. And if we're not seeing it go down, having that discussion and going, what are we missing?
Right.
That is absolutely the piece that I'm concerned about.
Well, one thing I would just add, in kind of support of what Mark was saying, I think this is also fantastic. I'm not saying this to negatively cut against what you're proposing, but more about what Mark said. They actually are out on the street and they do see the trends based on the drugs that they're encountering, what undercover buyers that are working with them are working to find, bust they're getting. So they see trends. It's just a different way of measuring the trends and seeing the trends on the street. So I wouldn't discount what they're doing to pump up what they're doing is all I'm really pointing.
Yeah, I would also go back to, like, we also looked at the DEA or the CDC websites to see what the DEA or somebody's reporting regarding fentanyl seizures, drug seizures, heroin, all that other stuff, to see if there is a decline. Maybe I'm just a naysayer, but I just don't see this, in my own opinion, having a big benefit, but maybe that's because I'm at the Metro Division and I already know what the issues are, so that's just my opinion.
So I want to highlight that, I might have time to talk about this meeting, when we are developing an interactive dashboard, we're gonna have some of that data, and I guess a snapshot of it, that we'll talk about at the next week's meeting. One use case that could be aligned with this group is like if you funded a sober house, for instance, and if you wanted to see they were really sober, you could do it at the individual organizational level to test. Right?
Or you could do.
So I think Kerry's point about a subcommittee might be a chance to talk about the use cases of it.
So actually, I think before I let you talk, Eric, I actually think that's an interesting thought process. For law enforcement to see that, they would have to actually have a search warrant to go in and, you know, dig into people's things, where they could just use wastewater that's been discarded essentially. So that's actually interesting.
It has happened before.
Yeah.
For non-target analysis, so I get that question a lot, in particular with the industrial remote camps and prisons and institutions. Why would we pay for something that we already know exists of? It's because of the emerging and changing drug supplies. Fentanyl's going down, we see that everywhere. Nitrogene's going up. So how are we actually getting ahead of that? How do we actually project how much naloxone we need? If we do see that, you can only find out that nitrogen actually is occurring by wastewater. Yeah. And but that's really a very interesting use case of actually looking ahead the emerging trends, because it is changing. So
So Mark, I see where you're coming from, but is. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when it comes to law enforcement, you absolutely know where it's that it is going on, where it's going on. You're probably seeing trends that are, probably more anecdotal than detailed data, unless you guys are keeping
Oh, no,
really good
they
records.
keep really good, we keep really records, okay, I use that, fentanyl seizures, how many.
Well, procedures, yeah.
And how much we've recovered,
Right.
things like that, I mean, we've got sources of information, we've got
Yeah.
CIs. So we
Yeah,
have
and I guess
a
where
grasp.
the point that I wanted to bring up is that from knowing what you're seizing does that tell you whether or not you're winning?
Mhm.
Does more seizures equal winning, or does more seizures just mean there's a hell of a lot more of it out there and we're getting more of it because there's more of it out there? Whereas I think this will tell us if the efforts that you guys are making in all these seizures, is it actually lowering, or is it going in tandem with an increase in use and an increase in
So
availability?
you see a decrease, so like, for example, fentanyl is going down. Many reasons why fentanyl is going down. We could use anecdotal information, quite honestly, some of the reasons why fentanyl going down is coming from Mexico. And a lot of their equipment that they were getting to manufacture fentanyl was from China. Well, now it's harder to get. And so we're still seeing fentanyl, but they're using other things to manufacture the fentanyl, but they're using not the same level of, I don't know, potency that there was. So it's a lower level potency, but that's now why we're seeing more seizures and in meth and cocaine and heroin going back up. So we're able to track different things like that, and we have that data, and I know DEA has that data.
So is that data getting to us?
I don't think we've requested them to provide it to us.
Right.
Mark, you can speak on this better than I can, but, there would be two ways of looking at the data that they have. There's gonna be the big picture data that they can probably provide. And then there's gonna be the more, granular data, that's gonna be case specific stuff that they can't provide, because of either investigations or prosecutions, that kind of thing. Anything you wanna add to that?
No, and I just think, we can provide data as far as we do a stick freak every month. We track what our
Most
seizures
people don't know
are.
what that means when you say that.
So stick brief is crime brief to our chiefs. It tracks everything about crime, our drug seizures, all that other stuff. I'm just saying, from my perspective, I'd rather see that money spent somewhere else because we already know we have an issue here, and I'd rather see it spent in prevention or some other aspect, because I feel like we can track trends pretty well. My opinion.
So I completely know that you guys, yeah, I can see what you're saying on the things that you're talking about. But I can't tell whether those people are moving that through, maybe like, is that just moving through, or do we know that that is increasing the usage? I think like that's where I'm really struggling is like, yes, you can see it's here in our community, but what's happening is, are people consuming it? And then on that youth piece, I don't see how that relates to that youth piece, and maybe you have some additional insight, but like, for example, where I'm saying we don't know, we're spending a lot of money on youth prevention. Do you feel like you're seeing something that's going to tell us, I mean, maybe you could base it on the rest, but I think this is also so subject to like how much policing is going on, it's hard for me. Maybe I'm missing it here, but how do we know if what we're doing in youth prevention, based on what you're saying, do you feel like there's a measure that we can go, yeah, that campaign, that digital campaign that we're running, we can specifically see from the time that started that fewer kids are actually using drugs? Do you feel like there's a granular level
I
that,
mean, we can do anything if we have the manpower, the people to do it and the staffing, but at this point, for analytical purposes, I would not be able to commit my analyst to running a record to see how many we've arrested or something to that effect. But what I would ask is, there's a lot of other youth prevention programs here. I mean, what are they seeing? I mean, I think they have a good grasp on, are they seeing an increase, decrease, things like that. That's what I would say. I would refer to the youth prevention program.
Yeah, before we get to that, one thing that I think is important to keep in mind too is that everything that Mark is saying is 100% true. But that basically covers El Paso County. Metro VNI is not, there's nobody from Teller County, I don't think, in that. So we're not getting that kind of granular detail to other parts of what Region 16 covers, or I can't remember how many episode folks you have, but
We have quite a few. We got Episode, Fountain, Monument, and CSP, right?
yeah. And so it's really focused on El Paso County, not, there's no efforts in Teller County, so this would give us some data to the whole region. Yeah, Dave got his hand up first, and we'll come back to Ron.
So we're looking at 94,000 roughly, is what I see on the number, right? Have we broken that down, like, so is that like, I guess I'm trying to get to this operationally, is that 3 sites? Cause that's kind of what you said. You said there are 3 areas, right? So
what I've done is I've actually broken per system per year, so per sampling location.
Okay.
Call the system for now.
So that's what we're looking at. So $31,000 per site. So is kind of what we'd be looking at. So if we wanted to do a school.
Yeah.
We would need to add another 31,000. Yeah, good.
And those 3 sites that you've got selected there are, can you remind us?
Woodland Park and Colorado Springs.
And the
2 Colorado Springs?
yeah, each of the 2,
Yeah, so I figured if we did all 6 days proposed, we would be roughly around 225, 250 for a full year. Monday and Wednesday, full non-targeted. Dashboards included with correlations with our results.
So I would suggest that we look at these 3 sites. And we get to know this program.
I would wonder though, are those the right 3 sites?
Well, so to your point,
Yeah.
then she's got a question.
It ties in with exactly what you're saying, and it might actually derail you.
Oh, okay, well, anyway,
Instead
the
of
3 sites, but then we form a subcommittee to see how much farther we want to go with this. So it would run in parallel.
I wanna see more derail you.
Yeah, go ahead, Drew.
So that is based on weekly sampling twice a week, right? So my question is, I agree with, I would like to see a subcommittee or task force, put together that we can really figure out how to make it actionable, but what I'm wondering is, let's say schools, and we gather some school districts and have a conversation about, is this of interest to you? We have this council funding available. Do you all see there being a benefit to being able to see what's happening in your schools using this procedure? And so that scope of work would look very different than this proposal. And my question to you is, can you, instead of it being twice a week at one location, could it be like it's rotating where every school's getting it once a month? And we're truly hitting a bigger audience? Or is there a reason that it has to be twice a week on the exact same location?
Great question. So statistically wise, this captures population activity. So we'll sample. I love Mondays because there's a lot of things in the community that happens on the weekend. We see that on Mondays. We don't see it on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, and it's kind of a very unique sample. We see a lot more crystal meth and marijuana. We see marijuana on Thursdays. Like the trends are per day. It's wild. Seriously, a lot of cocaine on Saturdays and Fridays, but it changes over per day. So I'm afraid that if we don't choose the right thing to represent, we have an issue. A monthly sample might be too far away. You might not have that frequency to get those nice curves.
And I'm just throwing out like monthly, I mean, you tell me what makes it effective to, if say it was, we were trying to get a better pulse on what's happening with our youth. And we wanted to sample across El Paso and Teller counties, different school locations, so that we know oh man, school XYZ, all of a sudden, we're seeing this crazy ramp up. We better maybe start doing some education and messaging hardcore and, you know.
I would do Mondays.
Focus.
Yeah, I would do Mondays, because that's what, all community activities happen, so you would see the immediate effect. That kid is going to school on Monday morning, and
But it sounds like there is some, yeah, room to tailor
Absolutely.
what we need, and so I guess I would say. I don't know if I'm ready to like approve the money today, but I'm very interested in seeing how we can take this opportunity for data capturing. And I just think we need to I'm gonna use the phrase task force, get together to like think through who are the players so that there is clear connectivity of who owns what and who's going to take action. And thinking about, is it school districts, is it law enforcement, is it hospitals, like, different players in the community that would be the ones that have the resources and the ability to take action, whether it's education, medicine, whatever.
I wanted to make sure Logan got an opportunity to weigh back in. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I think my previous comments were heavy on the challenges, but listening to your discussion from a data standpoint, applying those principles, if you do a task force, it sounds like you need to pick whether it's evaluation or if it's more proactive, and it sounds like proactive is not in favor because it's already being done, but evaluation because you want schools and just how much money, because each site is more money. But it does fill a data gap. The naloxone piece is, we struggle to say if naloxone, how much of a difference naloxone makes, because we only get part of the picture from the current data sources we have, versus this would be a more complete picture of interventions, whether it's naloxone or programs. And then it also speaks to the drug use that as isn't seen at resource points or justice points, as the people who aren't getting seen with their drug use. So it is a more complete picture, which in public health, we always look for the population level. So I just wanted to add that those data gaps would be filled if you did make a very planned, structured agreement. So I just want to make sure that I wasn't biasing the discussion towards challenges. If you took the evaluation approach, it would fill data gaps.
Any other comments?
The only other comment I would say is I'm concerned a little bit about focusing primarily on Colorado Springs and Portland Park. Cripple Creek has a lot of people that come into town. It's a gambling town, right? And so I think it would give us a better comprehensive view of what's happening there too. It's a small community, but a lot of people go there from Colorado Springs on the weekends. We've had, Jake, you guys have had buses up there of all kinds of different stuff.
Oh, yeah, all kinds of different stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
And
happening.
he's back there giving us a thumbs up, so. I think I prefer the community, assessments more than just necessarily the schools. Well, I think schools are good. The community gives us everything, right? Adults and kids. So.
Well, and that's where I'm thinking like this task force could, it could be like leaders from different segments coming together and having the conversation of where does this make sense? And I don't want to, I've had this conversation with Ms. Ryberg, our interim executive director of our public health. I don't want to force this on her or on our department. I want it to be helpful. And so that's where I'm thinking if we could like convene a group that has the conversation of, because they're not here hearing that this is an option or available. So yeah, like having that conversation, where does this make sense? Is it helpful? And maybe it is actually this, the school districts are like, no, it's not helpful, or it seems like a good opportunity to collect data, but to make it actionable is the key thing for me. And I think if we could have the right people in the room to have that conversation and know that this is an option. And I don't know who owns that, like, I started thinking about that, who is gonna help head up this group? And does that make sense for like the Board of Health or the Department of Health to sort of gather that? I don't know.
Yeah, I think we would have to figure that out internally, Dave.
So to finish my comment before I
I'm
was
sorry.
derailed, she didn't do it. Because you kind of did play into what I was trying to get to the point. Data's only good from the day you start. And so forming a task force, doing this, doing that, then making a decision, well, you've already lost a year of data. I think that there's a basic level of understanding the community at large, which will always be fundamentally clear. That's not a very big investment to kind of think about, could we start these programs with that? Then the task force comes in and says, hey, we got this new tool. Do we want to expand this tool? How do we want to use it? How do we want to justify the cost? How do we weigh those kind of things? That task force will do that. There'll be another component of task force. We're obviously going to have to invite our utilities companies into this conversation. There probably are some other key partners that would have to be a part of this. That would be the makeup of this task force that would decide how this tool might develop or grow in the future. But getting started with data, I mean, you kind of have to, the sooner you start, the sooner you get numbers. And I don't think it's a big ask to start getting numbers. We've talked a lot about data in this group.
So this is not necessarily a proposal under one of the scopes of work.
So it was. So last month he came and he presented under one of the scope of works as listed as that's the title of it. It was scope of work number 2, community engagement. And then at the time, without extended dialogue, you know, in 2 minutes to present, the thought was maybe it didn't fit, but where it's intriguing, so maybe we could set a separate RFP. So the wisdom of this commission could be to fund this, or the wisdom of this commission could be to create a separate RFP, much like we did for the high concentration cannabis to fund. I'm hearing Commissioner, Councilmember Limelighter led myself toward maybe bringing this back to something to go.
Well, I mean, are we not in a position to vote on it today?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so the way I feel about it is I'd want to include more of Teller County. And so 2 places in El Paso at least, and 2 in Teller County is what I want to see.
Yeah, and I mean, Cripple Creek, the demographics, any given weekend, there are more people not from Cripple Creek using that wastewater system than there are people from Cripple Creek using that system. During the week, it's gonna be a whole different picture, just because they, you know, you got 600 hotel rooms filled on the weekends and maybe 100 on Wednesday.
And I would point out too, to just couple on to what you're saying. The local community is some of the most socioeconomically challenged communities in Region 16. I think the poorest school that we have is in this R16. So I'd really like to include Cripple Creek, Woodland Park, and then do it down here.
So when we make a motion to amend that to, instead of 97,000, the
It'd be another 31,000.
130,000.
Yeah, it was 94,000 for 3 sites, so that's 2 in Colorado Springs, 1 in Woodland Park. If we add in Cripple Creek, we would just add another 31,000, I believe it was. Yeah, that's just.
So can you give us a number? I'm not gonna do math on the spot.
There's secret chemistry.
Yes.
That's other fun stuff.
160.
100 what?
160.
160?
No.
No.
130.
Around
120 something.
So if we add,
Yeah,
but if we add 125, if we just add Cripple Creek,
Yes.
but if we add a second city, in El Paso,
Well, that had 2 already. Right.
2 wastewater treatment plants for Colorado Springs.
Right.
We'll do all of Colorado Springs. It's 2 locations.
Yeah.
We could do just 1.
No, I don't think you're understanding. Your current proposal has 3 total sites.
Correct.
1 in Woodland, 2 in Colorado Springs. We're just adding a 4.
Yeah.
which would be in Cripple Creek, so.
No,
it'd be four.
what he's saying, Dave, is that, if we got rid of one of the Colorado Springs and added a different city, that's all he's saying. It's still 4 spots.
Four
Does any-
cities.
If I may, Mr. Chair, does anybody who serves on the CSU board know what the difference of the service areas of each of those look like? I mean, is it
Yes.
like north and south?
Yes,
And it's
Yes.
pretty clear division or? is
Yeah.
it-
Yes.
yes,
Because that, you
yeah,
know, that certainly could get, and
yeah, it's all
obviously your
gravity.
seizure
It's
information.
very, it is all
It's all
black,
gravity,
but it, we do have a clear.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Las Vegas is gonna, actually, Las Vegas has the entire city, because part of Phillips actually comes down to Las Vegas, so. So Phillips, and then Phillips is focused, so Phillips collects from really kind of the northern part of Colorado Springs, everything that's kind of uphill. But if you're downhill to Phillips, generally you're gonna be going to Las Vegas.
For
And-
now, there will be another one east.
And there's a pipeline from Phillips to Las
Yeah.
Vegas for
Does-
extra.
Would the
So-
fact that one feeds the other would,
Your capture problem.
Yeah, they do
Yeah.
feed each
but,
other.
right, but I'm just saying, are we gonna get
One way.
the same or different?
Sure, but
If
it
one,
still should collect one.
Is what you're asking, is it valuable to do both locations or
if
is
one's
it?
one, the other's about.
I think one.
Well, let's ask.
I think one.
Can I just
Ask-
say that I think this is where, like, we maybe need to just pause a second and take the time to get the right people in the room, the utilities people, to figure out what does make sense for this. I totally hear what you're saying, let's capture data as fast as we can, but if we don't know what we plan to do with that data, where we're capturing it, you know, I think we should just take a minute to like really think through what we want and where and why and what we're gonna do with it. Before we just decide, let's do this location and this location, and so I just wanna slow down a second.
Well,
and
there's an
better
aspect
Scope
of
of project.
approving this and then also getting utilities to agree to it. Utilities will have to say, yes, we want to do this. Utilities does not have to agree with our decision. So,
Right.
so just to be clear, they are their own deal but I've talked to them, they're not opposed to the idea. But wouldn't it be prudent to say, we would like to do this data collection? Utilities, can you be part of the conversation of deciding where the best place to do these? So we might not define the 2 locations right away, or the 4, but we can say we want to do 4. And then we come up, then the group would decide what that is.
Well, we would know for sure too, right? If it's
Yeah.
Cripple Creek and Woodland Park, that's easy.
Yeah,
It's not a gigantic city with
Right.
multiple
right.
places.
So like Abby at Utilities is such an expert in this and she knows all the areas that she might actually come with some more information we're not thinking about.
Yeah.
Cause I mean, then she's very, very, very good at this all the way down. Where all the water comes, all the watersheds, where they're feeding into Aurora all the way down. So I think she would be the expert at this.
I think what I'm saying is, I agree, we wanna move this forward. I don't know if it makes sense to approve a certain dollar amount right now, because someone like Abby could come in and give us better context to know, actually, we wanna do 5 sites, and so now we need more money. That's what I'm advocating for,
I think that's a good point. So I would actually make a motion that we fund 2 sites, but it's the Teller County sites, and then we have further discussion on Colorado or El Paso County sites.
I'd second that.
This is a motion for a second, comments, Commissioner Gagnon.
I just want to understand how we're going to get to that, because I agree, I think we could say today, we're gonna fund up to X amount of dollars, subject to having the expert discussion and come forward on what those are, so that we can get the ball rolling on that. I would also say, as we're talking about locations, you know, I'm from the east of El Paso unincorporated, and we're not talking about hitting that area. We've got, you know, rural areas up in Teller, and I think that's great, but I think, and again, those are a little bit different because they are metro districts, but you're not gonna be able to get all of those together, but you could pick one that's kind of representative of the eastern area of the county and do that. So that's why I'm saying, like, let's pick a number that we're comfortable with saying, like, this, figuring this data out. And then I do like the idea of getting a baseline and saying, to your point, let's figure out what usage is in the community, because we have a lot of programs running, and let's see what the trend is on usage, understanding that you guys have very great data on on the policing part of it, and I'd love to see that overlaid. I think that would be very interesting for us to look at. But knowing that we need to continue to dig down into this, because I really would love for our public health folks talking about those data gaps. I think it would be great if we did the whole community, then we also maybe looked at if that is going well and we find it useful, can we get down to that useful? Like, that's just been such a huge data gap, and I would just say, I would be transparent and say, if we decide not to do that, I'm going to go to Deanna and say, Deanna, I want you to go to the opioid council and ask for money to get this. Because it has just been such a struggle for us. And there are additional grant funding opportunities. There's all kinds of things out there that are really contingent on us being able to identify what's happening. So.
Well, I think, hold on, Mark had his hand up.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a bit confused now, so I'm not sure if we're voting on funding this or if this was supposed to be an RFP discussion. Because I think last meeting we had, we recommended this be an RFP and not funding this.
Well, that's a good point. It is.
So what happened last meeting was there was a preliminary thought that maybe it didn't fit in here, or maybe we could separate a separate RFP to where it would fit. Now with further time, you had 2 minutes to present last time, it's had more than 30, we're kind of at the end. So the comment is now, maybe it does fit in community prevention, and if it does, could we vote on it today? That's the question. So there was no reason except this group thinking initially it didn't fit in the group, but he applied, he met the timeline, he tried to apply to be funded under SOW 2. He was kind enough to come back and he wasn't gonna get awarded.
Call on Amanda, Steve,
Please.
Yeah, it's agendized as
it says RFP.
a potential wastewater RFP. That was really seeking direction for staff on whether we should hold an RFP. Not listed in one of the other 2 items as disposition for award. The first Steve,
Yeah, without having, having the context of the previous meeting, I think just based on the agenda, it is signaling that this was an RFP discussion.
Okay. So cannot fund it as a award under the traditional things that we've been doing now, at least for. Yeah.
So for my procurement process, I'm also like, is this a situation where potentially, well, I guess maybe not, because there are other companies that we could do. So we would need to do an RFP, because it's not like it's a sole source where there's only one company that does it.
I don't know how many companies do this. I've never looked into that, but I'm assuming there's more.
It sounds like, yeah, just because it sounds like a or
and so, yes, depending on the dollar amount would depend on the formal or informal procurement. Right now, as it stands under $150,000, it'd be an informal procurement where we collect quotes. And can look at those, but.
I think it does need to be a contract, not a grant award.
I think it could be both, but we are at the point of doing the contract.
Right. I just think we have more from a perspective of this organization, we have more accountability over a contract than we do a grant. And the ability to really make clear what those metrics are, and really appreciate you being here. And I think that though, if there are other companies that are doing this, I kind of feel like in the beginning, we really thought this was, or maybe didn't realize that, but hearing that like Pueblo and other folks, I do think facts to use is to do an RFP and have you compete with any other individuals who might want to provide those contracted services, so that we could compare the potential services.
Amanda,
Yes.
we've done RFPs in the past, have we not? Have we submitted those out for put those out for proposals to be submitted, or have we just voted on, we want to do a contract with X? How have we done that in the past?
We released the request for proposal to our procurement department that went out on BidNet, and then any eligible agency that provides that service has an opportunity to submit a bid.
Okay.
But let me jump in on, I think he meant contracted services, because the contracted services wouldn't necessarily need to be an RFP.
It does need to be some sort of.
Any contracted service has a need to.
Officer County, as the fiscal agent for the council, is required to follow our own policies. And so we can't just select a vendor and contract with them.
So just one point of clarification. So earlier in the process, kind of like early days, there was we had a conversation of what's a grant and what's a contract of service. And I thought there were some things that were awarded as a contract of service.
That's what I thought too. No.
No,
No,
okay.
in the initial.
What was the other one that we did contract for services? Do you remember?
So the initial, funding allocations you guys sent out were contracts for services. And then the only other contract we have is with Initium and with now what Jen's to grow up for the tech concentration.
We had, remember, we had a subgroup that reviewed all of the proposals from the RFP and,
I got it.
yeah, high potency, yeah, high concentration THC one, so, and then we brought in the rest.
So I have a recommendation. I'm not comfortable going to RFP on this just because of the time and process, because I believe you said within the contracting rules of El Paso County, that, did I hear you correctly, that you can go up to 150,000 with a request for quote rather than an RFP?
That's correct.
And that would be a shorter process.
Yes.
So since we don't have on our agenda and there's no mechanism today for us to take action, even if we wanted to, to go, enter into any kind of agreement, with CES, is to suggest, or, sorry, thank you, I was looking for it, there's CEC thinking, is for us to instead do an RFQ. And then, if that's even allowable under our agenda or direct, for an RFQ, specifically, potentially for up to 4 sites.
I think it is. I think it's noticed, as a potential RFP, RFQ is a subset of procurement, so I think that's permissible. To give that direction to flag an RFQ.
So we could do an RFQ for 2 sites, the 2 Teller County sites today.
What I would recommend is to do an RFQ for 4 sites, and within that time frame is then to ask Colorado Springs Utilities to, give them time to suggest where they would like those collections to come from.
So 4 sites would be 125,000, 3 sites would be 94,000. So I think you said the threshold was 120.
150.
150, okay, so you do 3 sites, 4 sites won't be short of that.
No, 4 would.
Sorry, 4 would be 125, 5 would be 156 then.
Maybe he'll cut you a deal.
It is 149,999.
Can we get that signed for the price of the car?
But then we have to post it allow, even if it's an RFQ.
Right, we still have to do the RFQ process, which is a request for quotes. So it's a shortened process. It doesn't take as long as an RFP. But it still provides an opportunity for other agencies to,
And then all of those would come back here for us to look at.
if that's what the council would like, is for the entire council to review them all, yes. Or you guys can direct a subset or however you decide.
Amanda, what would be a reasonable or window for an RFP to remain open under your rules?
Usually they do about 3 weeks, but we've done them short as 2, long as 12, depending on what we're looking for.
So we could definitely do this by next meeting.
Yep, I can get my staff started on it and, yep.
So procedurally, 2 options, you could do that, or you could have them to come back third time, and if it was on the agenda, you could fund it rather than grant, so at least 2 options, maybe more. Councilwoman Nelson.
Okay, I'm just gonna throw out, to derail, potentially, another option is because I feel like there's not a clear sense of ownership, like as an opioid council, we are approving funding, but it's based on, programs, people that are managing the projects and taking action with the funding. And so that's the piece that's missing for me. So I'm just gonna throw out the idea that we instead have the El Paso County Department of Public Health, and we can do an intergovernmental agreement with Teller County, to put together a RFP that then they come and explain, and it's the opioid council granting the money to those entities that are then in charge of managing how this funding is being implemented and action taken, so that once they have the data, they're responsible for what is done with that data. Because at this point, if we approve this funding, we're responsible for what's being done with that data. And what are we doing? Like, is that our experience block to make those decisions? So just putting that out there is another option that,
I guess one question I have, what if they say, well, we don't accept your invitation to engage that way? And then we're still stuck
then I
at
think,
neutral.
that tells us our community does not have a need for this data, that we can't figure out a way to take action on it. Other than us deciding
Yeah, I mean,
and forcing it. Like, if we say Powder Springs Utilities, we want you to collect this data, then what?
Well, I think, I hear what you're saying, but I think actually we do want to own this data because it is relevant to the decisions that we are making here. I think what is a bit more difficult, and this is kind of why I suggested the subcommittee, is I think we were probably going to have to figure out how to work with, and like you mentioned earlier, like we should ask school districts if it's valuable. I don't care if the school district thinks it's valuable. If we have the ability to go and collect wastewater, I'm not asking them to do the work. I'm saying we need to figure out what that work is. If we see that there's use there, we should go to the school district, but we don't, see, that's the thing, is we don't even have to go to the school district, because some of our youth prevention are these huge programs on billboards and digital, whatever, and so all we're using it as a measure of what we're doing is potentially successful if we are seeing those going up and down. So I don't think that we need, I think we are the action in a lot of ways. And so I think we own that data. That's why we were supposed to have a dashboard, because at the beginning of this, we said, here's the things that we're trying to accomplish. We want to prevent overdoses, yes, but we want to have less drug usage in our community after we spend this money. We have zero way of recording that. So us owning it is us saying, is what we're doing with this money making a difference? That's why I think we actually should own it. But then we can share it with public health, and public health can use it. And I think I am in favor of trying to get it going. And this is all the logistics of what it takes in government to get things done. And I get that we can't take action on it today, but I am in favor of saying, let's start with a baseline and let's refine it as we go. Because I think even if today we said, let's start collecting in Colorado Springs only, and again, I'm a big advocate for the eastern part of the county, but if we just said, let's start collecting in Colorado Springs today, and then when we come back together in, a couple of months, we can already see, here's where our baseline is, we've got these programs running, are we seeing ups, or are we seeing downs? Then we're already going to be measuring what it is. So I think it's valuable for us to just move forward. I think with the RFQ, get people to come in and just give us basically how many prices, where it is. We're still absolutely gonna have to work with those. Yeah, we can't dictate to them, but I think if we go to them and say, we are trying to make this work, I truly believe there's no reason that most utilities would say, no, we don't want to, to do this. So I think that we will be able to move forward. And then I think it's forming those partnerships where we see that they're valuable. And maybe at that point, the school district says, we don't have the resources to do this, or we say, hey, we'd really like to do this program, and here's why, because we noticed, these things are happening in our schools, and we have this data, and we'd like to come in, and I can see it great as like a pilot on this. You use it at one school, does drug use go down? Okay, now we know that this program is already working in a school, maybe we don't even need to test every single school site, because we're seeing a trend that we can extrapolate to other schools. Does that kind of make more sense? Like why I'm.
Yeah, so here's what I actually, what do you point out?
Go right ahead. I think you're gonna do what I was gonna.
Okay, well, I actually think what we should do is put it on the next agenda. Invite utilities to come and answer questions. Unfortunately, invite you to come back too. But also put it under a scope of work too, as opposed to an RFQ or an RFP. I think that's actually the best way that we handle this.
That actually wasn't what I was gonna say.
Okay, well, I didn't think you were on the same wavelength.
Okay, no, actually, what I was going to do, actually, I will do, just for experience of times, I'd like to make a motion. To do an RFQ for. 2 sites in Teller County, 2 sites in El Paso County. And work with Colorado Springs Utilities as to where those site locations would be. I think right now, there's actually 2 identified already for Keller, Willow Park and Cripple Creek, to do an RFQ for that. with those quotes brought back at our next meeting, at which point we can thumbs up and thumbs down. I think that the CEC probably has an advantage over others that may apply because they've had a lot of time with this. But I'm reticent to enter into the speed of bureaucracy. I'd like to shortcut that as much as we can while still following the proper acquisition rules for El Paso County. So that would be my motion.
Can I ask for an amendment?
Yes.
I respectfully would say maybe we look at three locations in El Paso County. Teller County is much, much smaller and
I would agree, but it exceeds $150,000 if we do that.
I don't know that that's the case. Somebody could come in with RF below that.
True. So if you're okay with that, as we work on the RFQ, I'll work offline on the statistics, but I think the proposal that I think is gonna be seconded is whether or not we do an RFQ to bring back to this group.
Yeah, I would rephrase my motion then, to do an RFQ for up to 5 sites. Scalable. Scalable up to 5 sites, 3 in El Paso County, 2 in Teller County. With the goal to bring those back to our next meeting.
For a vote on the,
For a vote on those.
that's fine too. I think what I propose, what you're proposing gets the volume.
Yeah.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, second.
Dave's not paying attention anymore.
And is there any other discussion on this?
Yes, discussion. Just a point of clarification, so staff will do the RFQ, and you want us to bring all of those back, every one that we receive back to this council next meeting for discussion. And is there someone on the council that I should work with to develop the RFQ language, or are you leaving that up to staff?
I think our non-voting public health members might be, perhaps. What do you think? That's one of my struggles with this board is that we have this board and not much staff directly attached to it, but public health would be my.
I would make a suggestion that we, yes, have staff work with public health, but then maybe run it by the chair and vice chair.
Fair.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on the motion and second? All right, let's vote then. Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Nay.
One opposed. One opposed. One opposed. Mark Shadari.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. Okay, so, thank you, Paul. You exceeded our time frame here. Also, we're on schedule. All right, so,
Before we move on, I just want to remind everybody, we did go a little bit over, almost by about 10 minutes. Just to be mindful of DA staff that are on hourly salaries, let's make sure that we try to get them by 5.
okay, so I'm gonna go quick on this. This portion is, really, I've added this just to make sure we didn't miss anybody, but we have talked about these groups a couple of times. And there was no desire to advance them, but I wanted to at least, just because we moved to the next cycle, have them back listed again. Please, question.
I thought that NME recovery was one we wanted to advance. Because it was the one that was cited in the minutes from like 2 months ago.
Just to refresh my board.
And I guess if it wasn't, I would like to bring it back for a conversation.
Here it is. So here's a perfect conversation. We get to have this conversation on this topic. Out of these, we can just pick the ones we want to bring back up. So it sounds like NME is a desire to bring it up. So NME is listed at 167, some of us. On the secondary, there's 2 of these. You have there's 2 of these. On the secondary one, there's a little summary of it. It's the one that starts with convergent on the cover. And it's, well, there you'll see a little summary on NME.
This was one that it was a for women in recovery, and what I liked about it was it encouraged self-responsibility and that they begin paying for rent essentially at a certain point, and yet it allows individuals to get on their feet and start building a savings in. I appreciated the model that it helps them get on their feet, but did still encourage or require for them to provide and make their own way at a certain point in the process.
It's much like Step Springs, only for women.
Yes, and a smaller scale.
So on this one, in remembering their, I don't know if you've got their original
I'm looking for.
slides that they had. If this is the group that I'm thinking about, is I had some concerns as to whether or not they could actually do at a level to affect enough people to be worth the level of investment that they were asking for. If I remember right, it was, shoot, I want to say it was like maybe 6 to 8 people. That it didn't look like it was gonna move the needle as much as what I would have liked, if it's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, it's gonna take them a while to find their full budget, so I just will go back to where they listed.
My notes said they had 8 currently and they had capacity for 15.
We have a representative from the organization here today.
Which I come to the front. Please.
That'd be great, thank you for helping us remember this.
Sure.
You can see we drink from a fire hose at every single
I
meeting. so.
know, I've learned that.
So when we initially did our presentation, we had 8 women. I think we have 10 right now. We're car certified for 15. But we're learning as the women move in and stuff comes, 15 is never going to happen. That's a lot of stuff and people. So we'll probably stay right at 12. And I actually have somebody coming tomorrow and somebody coming on Tuesday to put us at capacity. So we'll have 12 to be at capacity. I did want to say one thing, that number 167,000, I was trying to figure out, because you had mentioned at the first meeting about how the numbers didn't really, I don't think I put that number. When I looked back at my stuff, my, that 167 was my annual budget. That wasn't the amount I was asking for. When I originally did my application, it was back in January. And I just, because we hadn't opened yet, it was just this idea that we had. And I did, yeah. But, so I did my request for what it would cost for us to start to open the house. And then a year worth of operating expenses on the house. And that came to like 129,000, I think. So that was what my original request was for. When we came back and did our 2-minute, that wasn't 2-minute presentation, I talked about one of the, because by that time we opened, because we ended up opening our house on March 1st. We didn't use the grant funding money. I just, honestly, I used my 401k. So we were able to open the house on March 1st and just celebrated 6 months. But when it was time to come do our presentation, I talked about how I saw us using any kind of grant money that we got. And the best thing that I could think to do with that was to either help open our men's house, which is due to open next week. Or use it to scholarship women as they come in, because what happened in our first 6 months is we have all these people that want to come and that are, have made the decision. And if you don't get them right when they make that decision, then it's kind of, they disappear, So we had all these people that wanted to come, but there was no funding because Diversus and Signal did their transition thing. And so funding had dried up by then. So we were just funding them ourselves. And, but what happened when we were able to cover them for the first month or 2 months was great, because then they get their schedules together, because they have all of these, I think the guy from Antelope talked about, like the IOP, they have 20 hours of classes for that. And then they have individual therapy and group therapy. And most of the women have DHS cases, and they have visits with their kids and classes that DHS makes them do. So their schedule is full, and they're trying to balance all of that and then being told, you got to get a job. But you can't get a job when you work or when you have classes 5 days a week. So anyhow, that was the problem we came up against. We kind of talked and decided, well, let's see if we can cover them, take that stress off for the first 30 to 60 days and see where they go. Every single
And we
woman,
got employers to work with us to put them to work. So every girl in the house is working.
and most of them were working within 3 days of coming to the house.
That's the key part that is different. We're focused on getting them to work.
Go ahead.
So. Just so I have the details straight, the ladies are required to get a job after 60 days?
No, they're actually,
Read
we
it.
try to help them find a job from, like, even before they come to the house. One of the things that I have a discussion with them on is that we're not getting any funding. We want them to be self-sustaining because I can't afford to pay for everybody.
So then, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So the expectation is that they start working as soon as possible. We have a couple different employers that, people that have been in recovery themselves that own their own businesses now. We have a couple of our women who, like, one is a manager at McDonald's and one is a manager at 7-Eleven. And so when new people come in, they'll be like, hey, I'm hiring, throw an application in, we'll see if we can get the ball rolling. And it's been a game changer because they're working within that first week. So not only are they making money and able to pay their rent the next month, no problems. And so happy to be able, I had a girl yesterday run up to me with $200, like the last bit of her monthly fees. And like, I'm good now, you know, and
So what is the actual grant amount you're looking for then?
well, I did 129,000 for us to be able to open our next house. At the original time, it was to open our first house. So that's what I would love. But I think Commissioner Stone, I think you brought up when we first did our presentation.
Yep, I remember the conversation.
Yeah, he was just saying, because I did talk about in our presentation how we would like to be able to scholarship people for the first 60 days. And most of the time, I don't even think they need 60 days, but if we could take that pressure off, they're able to focus on everything that they have to do. And then by the time that third month comes.
So how many, you said you are now realizing you can support 10 to 12 women. How many months would $129,000 last you?
Well, and it's always, and we're also opening a men's house in 2 weeks.
But you're here specifically requesting money for the women.
Well, it's for our business as a whole. So it's $700 a month. So if we have 12 people in the house, and they need it for 60 days, say, I wouldn't even say 90 days. I would say 60 days for most people. 1,400 times
5,040.
$16,800 for 24 people in 3 months.
3 months.
For 3 months,
16,000.
$16,800 for 24 people. That would be both houses for 3 months.
And the other thing that I was thinking of talking to you guys about is anything that we can get, and I'm not a numbers guy, she's the numbers person and the data person. But the employment side, and having the employment services and being able to help them gain employment. I just started a maintenance company just to be able to put them to work. And I work for Griffiths Blessings, which is probably the biggest property management company here. They gave me the contracts for all the work on the side just to support this idea.
So it's kind of just the idea of our biggest thing and what we tell people when they're coming to our house that makes it different than other sober living houses is we want them to stay sober. And the very next priority is we want them to be working. And every girl right now knows that that's the requirement. And if they don't want to go to work or they don't choose to go to work, then that's a reason for us to sit down and have a discussion on if we're the right place for them to be.
I really like you as a police officer, but not as an accountant.
Oh, what happened?
Yeah, I think that's what I was. $200. I think that's for one house.
Yeah.
Times 3.
24 clients at $700 a month.
Okay,
For 3
yeah,
months, it'd be 50,400.
50,400, it's 16,000 a month.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
And I would actually say because of the turnover in people, like, we're right now about 4 to 5 months. Some a little longer, some a little less, but I would say for more people, for less time. I think 60 days is plenty for people. I don't want people to get used to somebody else paying their way. I want them to be, if they can be paying their way by the 4th week of them being in there, because they get their first paycheck, then that's what we want. I definitely, don't wanna put the expectation from them out there that we would cover. I actually don't wanna tell them that we'll cover anything. Like, we sit down and have one-on-ones with everybody, once every 2 weeks, so they know what their expectations and stuff are. But I think 60 days, for each person is plenty. But I was, sorry, go ahead.
What is your success rate as far as, I mean, how long are people in the home and then able to be out on their own of the people you've had so far?
Yeah, so far, I think I've had to ask 2 people to leave, for bringing drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I've had 4 people out of the, I think we probably had 25 since we started. And 4 people left on, negative terms.
3 people have already moved out and gone on to, they're still in recovery. They still call me all the time. One just moved out, like,
Most of the time it's because they're getting their kids.
Yeah,
back.
and we are gonna need to move
Yeah.
on, because I did have one
Yes.
very quick question, should be a very simple answer. What is your guys' organizational legal status?
We are an LLC.
Okay, thank you.
So we have an option to vote on them now, or we can ask them to come back next month with the revised budget and take a vote that, what was the preference of the council?
Go ahead.
I'm a bit concerned, confused at this point about what the funding request is, what exactly it is for, because it seems to be a bit shifting. You know, starting with $1,400, and I understand that not everyone, so if I said 12 people in a year, you might actually have more people than that in a year. But even at that, the $1,400 for that 2 months, and even if we said that turnover is twice as fast in the year, that's $33,000, which is a huge difference from the 167 this year. And I hear you saying that you don't think that's what you proposed.
Yeah.
I think we need to get clarity on what that was proposed, and if it's something different, what the breakdown is of how that's going to be spent, because I'm a bit confused, but I want to give you guys the opportunity to clarify some of that.
Yeah, and I think.
So can they come back? Okay, so it sounds, can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion for you to return with some updated numbers since this original number was inaccurate. Give us a little bit better idea of the funding and what we have time to use with.
we appreciate it.
Thank you. But for clarity, there was an additional number. So the application number, the number we use, they came, they presented a different number.
She was saying that was the overall budget, but
Yeah.
I
looked at the paper before. But I think that
And I
the most.
don't actually think we need a motion and second and voting. I think we just asked them to come
Come
back,
back.
clarify their application. It's already on the table, we just put it on the agenda. Yep.
So then just to confirm, because we did the initial application in January. And so by the time we get here, that's not exactly what we need. So should I redo the application to?
How would you work offline with me on the budget side?
Okay.
I would say yes,
Yeah.
like for what you're needing now, that you have more time. Whatever you want to come back to us with,
Okay.
the numbers you're needing for whatever.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
So it seems like we might wanna continue this dialogue with these other ones in the next meeting as well.
Yeah.
So I think that everyone has a copy of that sheet. I'm not gonna put another stack. So maybe bring it back next time, and we can go through these if we wanna bring anybody else back to further discuss. With that, let's move to the next agenda item, which is grant funding process review. For time purposes, we're gonna kick that to the next meeting. And going after that is annual discussion of solicitation of services. I've let the council chair know that I'm not going to be moving after December, so that'll be an opportunity for a new facilitator to come in I'm willing to support that person in transition even beyond December. But I started up the facility to help these, those first few months were really bumpy, so I'm not gonna do that to the next person. I'll sit in the audience on that side and help the background, so. with
I
that,
appreciate it.
open up.
Yeah, I would just say I appreciate, your willingness to help with that transition. I also wanted to tell you that I appreciate the work that you've done for us. From what I've heard from other parts of the state, I think we're doing really good work. And, it's because of the members of this council, but it's also because of you, so I appreciate that. So thank you. Are you gonna say so? Look like you had your own to say something like. Yeah, what's that? So, Amanda, how do we wanna handle this part of it?
Right down the street.
So
Do we need to put an RFP out?
we do, I have a draft of the RFP that we use last time with vanilla highlighting on it.
Okay,
So where I would like council's direction on it, would keep the same scope of services, same contract terms, unless you guys are all like, nope, just wanna use the same one and we can go out.
what are the yellow, how much of it is yellow highlighted?
Not very much. I only printed the part you guys need, not the entire 50 pages, because most of those are county forms. Really what we're looking for is just, to ensure that the scope of services that we have currently defined is what we're still looking for. So the performance that is expected of the facilitator, and then the qualifications.
Okay, and you have those printed out?
I do. Yep.
We pass them out, please?
Sure will. So I think. You can tell me if it's not noticed correctly, but what we would be looking for today would be. Direction to staff on if you would like to take this look at it, and then we can follow up next meeting with formal direction and formal edits if you'd like a smaller committee to review these qualifications. Or if you would like staff to prepare these qualifications and then get with chair, vice chair to get it solidified and out on the street. As a reminder, the RFP process takes some time, generally 90 to 120 days, and that's pushing it pretty quickly. So as our current facilitator is not going to be here past December, we're already kind of on a time crunch.
Although we'll help out. Yeah, so what is the most efficient way to do this then? Because of that time constraint.
In my opinion, the most efficient way would be for the council members to review this. If anyone has specific input on the yellow highlighted areas, provide that to staff. Staff can then get that information consolidated and bring it to chair, vice chair for approval.
Okay, I like that idea a lot.
Thank you.
Sure. I'm going to,
Probably. The owl is coming down.
Thank you, Linda.
So move to the next agenda item.
You okay moving to the next agenda item? Like, number 9.
Sure.
So, National State Opioid Conferences, this is, do you want to talk about this now or you want to okay the next one?
Yeah, no, I'll do just a quick synopsis of what this is about. There are upcoming state ROAC conference in October. There's also a national opioid conference that will be taking place in Denver in 2026. I attended the last one, of which the county paid for me to go there because I just used my commissioner's discretionary fund to go. But I do think it is probably appropriate that whoever from this board is going to attend these conferences, that probably this board should be reimbursing whatever organization that they represent this board from for the costs of that, and to potentially do that and then just follow El Paso County rules for the cost of attending conferences. I don't know what your policies are regarding that, but I'm assuming they're reasonable. But I just wanted to put it before this board that if we were to approve of people going to these conferences to represent this board, is that the ROAC reimburse the organization. I think we can probably do it. It's probably the easiest way. Do you think, Amanda, would be to reimburse?
Yes, we could do a reimbursement, or we could coordinate the travel through my office, whichever.
Or coordinate through the office, I guess, but that would take action of this board in order to, I don't know if we need it to be line item, because we have an administrative fund that I think would more than easily cover any of that. but it would need the approval of this board to do that. So I wanted to bring it to the board knowing that that first one, I think, is coming up here in October. So I guess that actually would be my motion, would be for members of this board that want to attend the state or national conference is for this board to reimburse or coordinate for the travel arrangements from El Paso County using administrative funds from this board. If that, I think that's a motion.
Is there a second?
I would second that, I agree.
Well, I guess the question I have is, what if everybody wanted to go to the same thing? Is that a good use for money?
Well, I think we struggled to get, I went, and I think, our public health director went, and again, we paid for that out of county funds. I don't know who from El Paso County went.
Staff. We've had some difficulty finding, people with availability to travel during that time, as it comes so far.
It's 11, so I don't think it's gonna be like a rush to go to the conference. It wasn't that.
Yeah, I do think it's important that the ROAC have representation there, and if
I don't disagree with that.
if it fits in my schedule, I'm more than happy to serve again, but just wanted to make sure that didn't totally feel right going back to my county.
We could also make a motion if that was agreeable, that like the chair or the vice chair is that person, so that it's not,
I don't have.
I'm safe. And if, then they can defer
Yeah,
down the line, that way it's a procedural
yeah,
and not just a fight.
yeah.
So there's a motion, a second and discussion, further discussion.
Matt, you have a comment?
I was just gonna say, this year, I went last year, it's a one-day conference this year, so it's not the 2 or longer that they've done in the past.
Where is it this year?
It's in love.
Oh, that's what you said.
That's helpful.
Okay,
So vote. Any other?
so we got a motion, a second, any other discussion?
Take a vote.
All right, let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, then, last thing is,
Hey, can I just go back to the previous agenda item, the solicitation of services?
yes,
Is it feasible that everybody review this and have stuff back to Amanda within 2 weeks so that we can keep moving effectively? And if you don't hear anything in 2 weeks, then you can just communicate with Eric and I. Assuming that means people don't have any objections to the language.
Yeah, that's what I would say. If you don't hear from us, we don't have objections, so that you're not waiting to hear from us, right? Is that fair?
Yeah, I just want
Clarify
to move
that.
this along so that we're
Yeah.
not stuck behind the.
I agree.
so, we're gonna have to talk about next cycle applicants next month. There will be 18 of them. Out of the 18, 5 will be applicants, which means that they had a shorter application. They're really just gonna show you the big success of it. We can talk more about this next month. They're broken up into those different SOWs. That's the total amount, highlighted ones are people who are responsible. That's a short application. I'll come back to this for discussion next month. One thing I did want to cover is the next agenda item is future meetings. This happened last year as well. So November 26th, day before Thanksgiving, December 24th, day before Christmas. Not likely we want to meet those days, but I think we should meet at least one of those months. That's what we did last. We took a month off. We did one of those months, but we picked a different day. So I don't know if we can do it the one day that we have left, or if there's something else we can do by scheduling, but we need to pick a date of December, November. Right one.
Can I just throw out that I think it's the third or second Wednesday of every month is our utility board meeting that conflicts with this.
Okay.
So let me look real quick and tell you which one. So we, either one would be here on that. I'll tell you which one it is real quick, but it's the second. Nope. Yeah, wait. I'll let you know, but those months there, that one Wednesday is a utility board meeting and they do go till 5.
So it sounds like, last time we took December off, we met in November. We're gonna do the same again this year.
I think November is easier than December usually.
So what I would suggest though is, that we move it to a morning meeting as opposed to an afternoon.
Yes, that would be great.
Oh.
Which night the day before, I think.
26th.
Or he was saying move it to a different day altogether, weren't you?
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, I would not suggest that we do the day before Thanksgiving,
Well,
if at all possible.
okay. The problem is that once we start moving to different days, that's why we pick Wednesday, because most of us can fit a Wednesday.
I
Well,
get that.
22nd is our utility board meeting, so any other day but the 22nd.
November 22nd.
That's a Saturday.
I mean, October, I'm sorry,
Oh,
that's
sorry,
October.
in November, could we do the third? Well, that sounds like there's gonna be. Third will be the 19th of November.
October 19th is the utility board meeting.
November.
November 19th. You're right, November,
So
November 19th is our utility board meeting.
could we do November 12th? Feels like a holiday.
October, November, I don't know, just. I can do the 12th.
How many here can do the 12th?
What time, yeah, what time, are we talking morning or afternoon?
I can do anytime.
I'll confirm this via email though, because it's gonna go rush, so they confirm this via email, but it looks like November 12th.
Yeah, so PPRTA, I don't know who else is on that. They're on that either, but PPRTA is in the afternoon, so.
Which I could be early. Neither one of us are on the PRT.
So if I'm home.
Could we do November the first week?
I wouldn't do the first week because that's the day after election.
So let me do a poll offline in November. So yeah.
That is a thought.
So the morning of the 12th doesn't work?
Yeah.
I guess that's what I was saying is shoot, not for you. Okay.
I think that's.
I can just, we can do the 12th and I'll just leave PPRTA early. Like there's two other commissioners that are there.
We can actually ask another commissioner to fill in.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. We'll make it work.
So solid November 12th, subject to email confirmation.
Please send that email out.
As soon as possible, get it on that calendar, that's right.
The calendar invite.
That's what I was gonna say, put that hold on.
And then everybody agrees we want to cancel the December meeting?
Yeah.
I think we should.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
There we go.
Let's go adjourn.
You adjourn.
Yeah, hard to, but I'm gonna go there.
I can.
Driving your phone.